Marloile Day and Talofa Lava, everyone. Welcome to another live digital kava session on the Polynesian Eyes podcast. I am Mr. Aotearoa coming live from Aotearoa. Got Tua Lau as my co-host. Tua, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing good. Everything's going well. We just got over hump day. So we got Friday.
Ooh,
Friday is in our sights. You're one day closer to Friday than me down south, but
yes,
we're
yes.
definitely one day closer to Friday, Mr. Aotearoa.
Nice, nice. Yep, we're already past hump day on this side of the hemisphere and looking forward for one more day. Another day, another dollar here in Aotearoa. So I'm excited for some of the topics and discussion on this Kava session, Tua. So let's get into it, man.
Yeah, let's start off with the Nemo headquarters in Tonga, Mr. Aotearoa. Kind of give us what you've heard, and then we'll pull up this article. But it sounds like there's some drama between Tonga Power, the King, and government about a lease, a $1 deal.
Ooh,
Usually we go to the dollar store and we're excited about $1 deals. But what
man.
do you kind of know about what's going on there?
So so the Maytech is the ministry of where they kind of do forecasts of weather and I think it's like weather environment. It's kind of I don't know the full details to that acronym, but it's called Maytech, and they're building their head office in the king's property. But the king didn't give consent to this place to build, and they already started building it, and they got it. I guess the king had the estate lease to Tonga Power, which is the utility company that runs
Mm,
the electricity for Tonga. And they had the lease to this property and they sublease to the Ministry of MEDIC, which is the environment or
yeah,
climate
it says here
forecast.
Ministry of Meteorology, Energy, Information, Disaster Management, Environment, Climate Change, and Communications. That's a mouthful.
Correct. That is a mouthful. We need to simplify that one, Tonga. We need to simplify that one. But yeah, that's the ministry that built its headquarters or the building on this property. But it sounds really messy because they should have applied directly to the king, the state, to get the lease because the king only allowed, I think, the person who had the sublease, which is the Tonga Power, and Tonga Power is the one that gave this ministry the sublease agreement for $1, and they go, and that's the thing, they went ahead and built it when that was not the correct process of people, seeking lease from any property, not even just the king, but any person that has inheritance in Tonga. So it should be directly. You don't give somebody the lease, and then the person you gave the lease to gives permission to another person to sublease, and then they build it, and then they pay them. Like, how does that? Does that even that sounds very wacky and um, illegal. So you know this 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 thing happened during the last government, not Prime Minister Reke when he had it for a little bit, but before that, this happened all during Xiaoxi Sovaleni's time. So that's my understanding of it, and this article kind of really breaks down kind of all the details of what really happened and the amount of money that maybe you understand why with the money that's involved to make it cheaper for the government to do it instead of maybe paying the correct price to His Majesty regarding his land. So that's my thoughts there, Tua. I don't know if you picked anything or what you've kind of heard regarding this topic that's kind of pretty big at the moment, debating in Tonga regarding
Yeah,
this.
I mean, well, we'll read through the article here real quick, but the first thing that comes to mind, who does a business deal like that? Right? Like we hear all the issues with Tonga Power and the electricity and Tonga Power going into big, sounds like financial crisis sometimes. Well, this
Hmm.
is this is how you get into those kind of financial issues, right?
Hmm.
So I'm assuming the Tonga Power is paying the king an amount for a lease, or maybe the king gave it for free. I don't. Number one, the king shouldn't give it for free, right? He should
Hmm.
should have them pay a lease. But even before we get to the legality, what a stupid decision, right?
Yeah.
Is Tonga Power says we're going to lease it to these guys for $1, right?
Yeah.
So let's just step back here and understand why this is a very bad decision. Who is paying for that lease? It's the customers and the government, right? Because I think in Tonga, the government, I think, subsidizes the electrical cost. I think there's a
Yes.
subsidy that the
Yeah.
government pays, which is the taxpayer, which is eventually the tax paying citizen. But then also, you know, the cost of producing electricity is passed on to the Tongan citizen, the average consumer.
Mm.
So this is where they're not making right decisions. Because they subleased it for $1, so the full burden of that lease or that cost that's tied, if there's a cost tied to Tonga Development Bank, to Tonga Power, they pass it on to their customer. So the customer did not get a single benefit from this lease, right? If they're already paying for it. Now, in the scenario that it was given to them for free, it's still a bad decision because
Mm.
you lease it and you make the Nemo people pay it, and then you can take that money and all the times they have blackouts and all that other stuff, they could have taken that money and improved the infrastructure, maybe hired some people that they needed to service the grid, the network. Either way, whether they're paying for a lease to the king or if the king gave them that land for free, it was an absolutely terrible decision to lease it out for 50 years for $1. Like, that makes zero sense. This is why Tonga Power is in the mess that it's in. This is why the government agencies, these people, I mean, this is the problem when you have, I don't know how else to say it. When you have people who are making these decisions and they don't have a customer mindset, they make
Mm.
very poor decisions. Anyone with half a brain who understands Tonga Power, any business is to serve the customer and its
Mm.
owners. And you do it perfectly when you can make the customer and the owners win, right? And then all the employees. When you get everybody getting a good deal, then you're doing your job. Sounds to me that the owner of Tonga Power got nothing from this deal, $1.
Mm.
The customer didn't get anything out of this, and the employees didn't see any benefit of additional resources to help them with their work. It was lose, lose, lose. And if it got sold for $1, I'm telling you, someone's bank account grew by more than $1. Somewhere over here, someone got a
Mm.
deal that was bigger than $1. So that's kind of like my initial thoughts is no wonder why Tonga Power is in the situation it's in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
And
don't
yeah,
know.
and the yeah, because this building is already built, and apparently the ministry made a request for the king to come do the opening, and the and the king declined it until they resolved the dispute with the leases.
What a
So right,
slap in the face to the king,
mm, tell
right?
me about
You
it.
you do something that's potentially illegal to the king, and then you tell him, "Oh, can you come and
And
cut the
open.
ribbon?" I was like, "Are you
Mm,
like what are these people are not thinking?" Right? No
yeah,
wonder why the king did not want Sovalini's government to.
yeah. They were incompetent. It was
Yes.
incompetent. And you know what the funny, I mean, I think Fafanua is an upgrade, but that's a mistake that he got him to the same position where he's caused all these mess, because now he's the minister for the public enterprises that's Tonga Powers under. So
Yeah.
that's the mistake, and the thing I kind of this government, even though they're doing better, but I was like, I don't know, man. And then
This
he
is
gets yeah, he gets the same guy to the position that a lot of this mess is happening.
Yeah. Now, and maybe this is rookie mistakes because he hasn't been in leadership before. Uncle
That's probably
Donald had
true.
to go through the same growing pains where, you know, it's politics is a funny thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
You don't make decisions that make sense. Real quick, UTOL says, ha ha ha. Malo UTOL. Thank
Hey,
you for the
Malo,
support. A
welcome,
paying
welcome.
welcome, a paying member of the Polynesian Eyes podcast. So appreciate your support, UTOL. So yeah, let's kind of read through this real quick.
Yeah.
I'll read through the first three paragraphs and then we'll switch off. So it
Okay.
says Palace intervention raises questions over legality of land arrangements between Tonga Power and Maydeck. The official opening of Tonga's new National Emergency Management Office, NEMO headquarters, continues to stall due to dispute arising the palace office's disapproval of the sublease of the original lease to Tonga Power. Documents obtained by Tonga Independent News show the dispute has left government agencies scrambling to unravel years of lease arrangements involving Tonga Power Limited, the Ministry of, here's the mouthful, Meteorology, Energy, Information, Disaster Management, Environment, Climate Change, and Communications, and the Ministry of Lands. The document suggests the issue extends well beyond a simple administrative oversight, raising questions about how a major public infrastructure project proceeded before the underlying land tenure was fully resolved.
Isn't this another same issue with kind of what's happening with the Tonga Fangauta Bridge that's
Well,
happening,
yes,
you know?
we'll get to that, right? We're
Yeah.
seeing there's a trend. There's a trend
Yeah.
that's popping up here, not only with which governments were leading this, but kind of the shady business that's happening around it. So,
Okay.
okay, you can go ahead. I
All right.
think at the heart
At the
right
heart.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the heart of the dispute appears to be differing interpretations of the procedures governing royal estate leases, particularly the relationship between cabinet's approval of a sublease and the rights of the royal estate as lesser, yeah. Whatever the cause, the result has been a complex land dispute affecting infrastructure funded by millions of paanga in development assistance. According to the lease, Tonga Power Ltd entered into a 50-year lease over the Matatoa site in 2015 for the construction of its headquarters. In August 2016, following a request from the then Deputy Prime Minister for Tonga Power to accommodate the new NEMO headquarters, TPL agreed to sublease approximately 7,446 square meters of that land for a new meteorology and NEMO head office funded by the Asia Development Bank. The arrangement was approved by a special meeting of the Tonga Power Board and became sublease number 264 issued by the Ministry of Lands for a term of 35 years with an annual rent of $1.
You telling me I can't go to McDonald's and go through the drive-through and get a $1 cheeseburger, but I can get like acres of land for 35 years for $1?
For
Must
from 2016 to 2051 for $1. Masi. So this is 2016. So this is during while back. So this has been an issue for a minute then.
Yeah. Well, and here's a couple things that come to my mind. For reasons we will not get into, we are aware that Tonga Power did not have a CEO for years and years,
Hmm.
right? And this is what happens when you don't hire someone to be accountable for decisions that are made. So this was a decision that was done by the the board, the members of the board.
Of that time, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tonga Power
of
Board.
Tonga Power Board, right?
Hmm.
Well, who's going to be blamed for that? Who's going to be held accountable for that?
It's up to the
Right?
CEO.
Because it's not a CEO. It's not like you can say, "Oh, the CEO had it." It's like, "Oh, it's the board." Well, I guess we'll have to arrest the entire board. I don't know how you deal with that,
Mm,
right? Legally, like who do you hold responsible? Is there a reason why they didn't want to hire this role for many years? Because there's deals,
yeah.
backdoor deals going. It just it didn't make sense why that role was never filled for years and years. Well, maybe now we know why. People were doing things that probably shouldn't have been done. And if there was
Mm,
a CEO in charge, the CEO would have said, guys, this is the stupidest decision. Why would we make that decision?
mm.
Right. But then you have people who are sitting on the board who are not impacted by the decision, who are not going to be held accountable.
Yeah, yeah, because they're a term limited position, and they know they're not gonna be there no longer. So, and maybe they did their homework that no one was gonna be liable because there was no CEO, and they did that in purpose. Who knows? I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's reading between the lines of what's going on at the moment.
See,
You know.
this is one of the things about, in politics, if you know the rules of the game, you know how to stay out of bounds, but influence everything that's going on in bounds. Anyways,
Mm,
very interesting. Very interesting here. I'll read this next section and then you can read the palace concerns.
okay.
Safety concerns changed the project. The documents show the original site was later considered unsuitable due to safety concerns because of its proximity to the Tonga gas depot. In July 2022, Public Enterprises chief executive, why don't they name names here? Right? Don't we
Yeah.
know who that is? I mean, it's yeah, okay. Public Enterprises chief executive requested that the gas depot be relocated because of concerns about locating the country's emergency headquarters so close to the field. Well, why didn't they think of that before they signed the lease? Like, aren't
Yeah.
these things you take into consideration? That's why this just sounds shady, right?
Mm,
Like, before
mm,
you sign the lease, wouldn't you say, hey, yeah, maybe this is not a good spot because it's right next to the gas depot. So let's go
mm.
look somewhere else. This is getting funkier as we go. As a result, Tonga Power canceled the original sublease and sought approval for a revised leased area incorporating the former Tonga gas depot. Tonga Power wrote to the Ministry of Lands in November of 2022. Who from Tonga Power? Right? Was
Yeah.
there a CEO of Tonga Power at that time? I don't think so.
Mm,
November 22, requesting cancellation of the original sublease to make way for the expanded lease area. The revised proposal was approved by special board meeting. Look at all these special board. You know what that sounds like? Backdoor deal. A
mm,
special
mm.
board meeting. Um, where am I? I got carried away. Board meeting of the Tonga Power Board in September of 2022, and cabinet approved the new sublease arrangement on the 3rd of February 2023. So it goes through the board, it goes through cabinet, and cabinet includes all members of parliament. What's considered the cabinet?
The cabinet is the more of the executive team within the parliament, like the ones who have portfolios for the prime
So the
minister.
ministers.
Yes, the ministers, like the when they say cabinet, it's the prime minister and all of the cabinets, like he's given you the Ministry of Police, all of those guys, they approved it during that
Mm.
government time.
So you don't have a CEO, right? And then the cabinet approves. And so, really, there's no one single person you can say that's the person you can say is responsible for it.
Mm.
Sounds like, I mean, it's pretty clever,
You could say you could put the prime minister of that time. He's the one that's his cabinet, so he could have the prime minister of that time.
but he can't unilaterally approve it. He has to have everybody's vote, right?
Okay.
I'm asking the question. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming here it says
I'm
it's approved means they vote. They approved it, but nobody asked the question: has the Ministry of Lands blessed this, that this is a legal, and we've made sure that this is cleared His Majesty's estate and also the Ministry of Lands. I'm assuming the Minister of Lands. Who was the Minister of Lands back then?
Ooh, it was. I'm assuming it was the nobleman, Tuyafitu from Bavao, I believe.
Hmm.
Tuyafitu. Yeah.
Hmm. So maybe the royal family doesn't control everything after all, right? For all the people who
No.
say, "Oh, the king he controls everything," I guess that's not true, right?
No.
Oh, and here's the other thing too, and this comes out from our discussions with some people online. Some people are like, "Oh, Tonga does, the king owns everything in Tonga. He does whatever he wants. He controls the land." And we try to tell them, it's like, there's a constitution and there's
That's the
layers
su-
of ownership.
that's the superior. If we had to choose what who's accountable, who's everyone's accountable in Tonga, even the king, everybody's accountable to the Constitution. Constitution is the supreme law of
Yes.
Tonga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then people push back, it's like, "Oh, but I can't help it, but it's just our Samoan brothers and sisters. Oh, but in Samoa, the government, that they would never stand for the government doing that." And I'm like, guys, if the government says they want their property, they will take it,
Mm.
right? Like, and let's use the example of American Samoa. American Samoa has said no, no, no. They protested, and what did Uncle Sam say? "I appreciate it. We're deep sea mining. We're going forward."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So even the king is subject to the Constitution and the law and so forth. But okay, you want to read this next one?
All right. Palace raises legal concerns. The issue resurfaced only after construction of the new headquarters had been completed. According to internal documents, Madec invited their majesties to officially commission the building on 30th January 2026, early this year. However, the documents show the king's private secretary informed the Madec chief executive that the sublease from Tonga Power to Madec had been illegally done, according to correspondence from the palace office, because it did not comply with the terms and conditions of the original royal estate deed. The correspondence says the commissioning would remain pending until the land issue was resolved. The same correspondence records that palace officials recommended terminating the existing lease arrangements altogether and replacing them with two separate leases directly from the royal estate, one for Tonga Power and one for Maydick. So let me get this straight. I'm interpreting this as the original agreement that the King estate had with Tonga Power was not supposed to sublease. That's what it sounds like,
It sounds
because
like, yeah,
it was supposed to be an agreement that they originally had and keep it that way. But for some reason, Tonga Power felt like it was entitled to sublease to this current
yeah. And
Maytech ministry to build the building, which was, it even says it what the king said through his private secretary, it was illegally done.
yeah, and I want to add, like, this is smart leasing. Is when you lease to someone, you try to negotiate that you control no subleasing, right?
Yep.
Because you don't want them to bring someone you don't know or have control over, right? Because as an owner, when you lease to someone, you're going to say, you better meet my credit requirements, my background check, whatever.
Mm,
And you're not going to sublease for a couple of reasons. You're not going to sublease to someone that I don't know, that'll damage my property, will do all those things and control that. And the other thing is, you're not going to make money on me, right? I'm
yeah.
not going to lease to you for 2,000 and then you go sublease for 10,000. It's like, no, that's not how it's going to work. So like, this is there's a good chance that the sublease is specifically called out in that lease to Tonga Power not to do it. But you know how it is in Tonga, that the government officials, they're like, well, we're the government. We can do whatever we want. It's like, no, there's still the
Typical.
law. There's still
Yeah.
the Constitution. You still got to follow the rules. Anything else, Masi, before we continue?
No, no, no. That's my understanding of that part of the article was there was an original agreement and looks like that was inserted there, or even by law that you don't create another sublease that you bring in if that was not negotiated and it with the king of state, and the king of state has stated that that shouldn't have been happening. It should have been two separate leases directly to the owner. That's what they're trying to say. So
Yeah.
that's my understanding. Yeah.
And this one, it just says Maydeck is trying to terminate, kind of like what you read earlier. They want to terminate and then get a lease directly from the palace office.
Yep.
Let's see what the I'm assuming this is the current prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
It says at a press conference on Friday, 31st of July, the prime minister was asked about the delay in commissioning the new Maydeck and National Emergency Management Office headquarters. He said his administration had identified an error in the lease arrangements after His Majesty declined to commission the building, and that the government subsequently canceled the lease. However, contemporaneous correspondence and official documents obtained by Tonga Independent News indicate that the sequence of events began several months earlier. The documentary record indicates that the issue first emerged in January 2026 when the King's private secretary advised the chief executive of Maydeck that the existing sublease between Tonga Power Limited and Maydeck appeared to be inconsistent with conditions of the original Royal Estate lease. As a consequence, His Majesty deferred any decision to attend the commissioning ceremony until the land tenure issue had been resolved. The documents further show that Maydeck subsequently met with the palace office where it was recommended that the existing Tonga Power lease be terminated, thereby extinguishing and the associated sublease, and that the two new lease applications be lodged directly with the Royal Estate, one with Tonga Power and one with Maydeck. Gee.
Consistent. Yeah, let me read that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Consistent with that recommendation, on 19th January 2026, the chief executive of Maydeck formally wrote to the Minister for Lands requesting the termination of sublease number 337 and seeking approval for Maydeck to obtain a direct lease from the Royal Estate. The documents therefore indicate that the process leading to the cancellation of the lease arrangements began after concerns were raised by the palace office rather than with the government independently identifying the issue.
Read the first three paragraphs here.
For the $1 question,
Yes, the $1 million question.
perhaps the most intriguing question arising from the documents is not whether the sublease was lawful, but why it was structured the way it was in the first place. The sublease, registered by the Ministry of Lands, granted Maydeck exclusive use of approximately 2 acres. One was it road? I
One
can't see. Is
Rood.
it
Yeah, Rood.
one
R O
road?
O D.
Okay, one ruled, and 39.7 purchase of Royal Estate land at Matatoa for a term of 29 years at a rental of just $1 per annum. On one view, the arrangement may have appeared entirely reasonable. Tonga Power Limited is a government owned public enterprise, while Maydeck is a government ministry. One possible explanation is that the officials regarded the arrangement as a transfer between two government entities, making a nominal rental appropriate. However, the land itself did not belong to Tonga Power. Anything to a
No, this is once again this whole thing of, oh, it makes sense because it's government agencies, but people are not paying ministries a fee for a product or a service. This is
mm,
Tonga Power. It's an enterprise. It's something. It's almost like, you know, a a necessity business or service that you're offering. And once again, this is just really poor decision making. The customer didn't get anything out of it. Tonga Power didn't get anything out of it, and the employees didn't get anything out of it. So who was getting something out of this? That's the real question. Who
You
who
don't do
who
something. You don't do all
yeah,
this work just to get minimal. No one is benefiting. Even the country as a whole, the His Majesty's estate. No one. So
yeah.
money's flowing somewhere.
Exactly. So to me, I mean, and Tonga is getting an education. Obviously, for a lot of our viewers, my background is in building major projects. Land acquisition is a challenge, but Tonga's situation, because of its unique ownership and levels of ownership, it's more complicated. And this should have been a easy situation to address. And we'll use
Mm.
this as our transfer over to the the bridge that's
Pangauta.
being built in Tonga,
Eh,
Whangauta Bridge, right? This one should have been a slam dunk, easy problem, right? Now we're going to go to the Whangauta one. That one's a little bit more complicated. There's a few more things to take into account.
mm,
But if you couldn't execute on this, and it sounds like it's the same government, you couldn't execute on this, then yeah, you're not going to be able to execute on a larger project, right? A more sophisticated project. So
mm.
this one is a good transition over. So we had land problems on a simple lease. Um, let's want to read the title and
Yep.
then just kind of like the summary underneath. Must
All right. So this is from Kingdom Tonga News. Pangauta
yes,
Bridge delays continue as land issues drive up penalties. Okay, I didn't know that. So penalties is actually being applied right at this moment to
it's
us.
like millions of dollars, Mussy. It's like 17 million bucks a month or something like that. Something crazy.
Jeez. Damn. Okay. Unresolved land disputes are continuing to stall construction on Tonga's critical Whangauta Lagoon Bridge, forcing the government to face escalating financial penalties while officials explore alternative routing options and hold discussions with landowners. The ongoing delays threaten both the budget and the vital infrastructure progress for the region.
Yeah. So Prime Minister Lord Whakafanua, Patafei Whakafanua has acknowledged that unresolved land issues are continuing to delay construction of the Whangauta Lagoon Bridge, leading to further financial penalties for the government. The 720-meter bridge is intended to improve links between eastern villages and Nuku'alofa and to ease congestion on Taufa'ahau Road, which I hear is pretty bad. It was
Yeah,
starting to get bad when I was just about leaving Tonga in 2002. I heard it's just really
yeah,
bad.
everyone,
Like,
yeah, multiple homes from families throughout Tongatapu have one or two vehicles. That's norm now,
yeah.
you know. And a lot of that is driven because of the access of people um, getting to go to the picking industries or agriculture in Australia and New Zealand.
So they just have more additional income to buy
Yep,
vehicles,
by
which is
vehicles.
crazy because gasoline's pretty expensive and so forth. But hey, it says here earlier reports indicated. Oh, no, no, let me come back. Work remains stalled mainly because of disputes at the northern landing site at Umusi. The southern approach at Folaha is reported to face fewer obstacles.
So
Um,
Umusi, that's the town side, right?
yes.
Okay.
Earlier reports indicated the government had already paid around 7 million in penalties to the contractor between September 2025 and February 2026. Continued delays risked pushing the total towards 14 million
Jeez.
if the land matters remained unresolved. The project is supported by the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank. The civil works contract was awarded to Mekono Dowell, September 2025. Some preparatory work, including pile testing, has taken place, but full construction cannot begin until access is secured. Want to read these
Yep.
next three?
Lord Falfanua has indicated that options, including possible adjustments to the northern starting point, are being examined. So, Okay, I'll read this before I ask my question. The government continues discussions with landowners and the Ministry of Lands to reach a resolution that respects both legal and cultural requirements. The Fangauta Lagoon Bridge ranks among Tonga's most important infrastructure projects. In addition to reducing daily traffic pressure, it is designed to provide a vital excavation route during tsunamis and severe weather. Prolonged delays therefore carry both financial and resilience costs. As penalty payments accumulate, pressure is growing for a lasting settlement of the remaining land questions. Once construction proceeds, the planned 3-year program is expected to improve connectivity across Tongatapu and strengthen climate resilience. The government has restarted its commitment to completing the project while ensuring land processes are handled fairly for the families and communities concerned. Okay, so my
What are your
question
thoughts?
is, Tua, my question is, if you go up a little bit,
Oh,
oh, if you go back to that article, so my question is, this, if you go down where I just read, any options, just so my question is, it looks like if they're examining other options, that means the person that's that has the land that the bridge is originally designed to go to and land, they're not agreeing to whatever the price the government is negotiating. If they're already talking examining other options, that's what I'm taking it. That's why it's taking so long. The there's disagreement with the person who's the landholder where the bridge is supposed to go. So I don't know. That's kind of my
yes, they
understanding.
haven't acquired the properties, right?
Mm,
So typically what if you had the ideal world, right? If you had the ideal world, you would get your permitting, do your environmental studies, and acquire the land that's in the studies, right? You would acquire that. Once you've acquired the land, then you would do your designing and then you go out and you build. Okay. That's in the ideal
is that
world
the
if you
order?
can get
That's the
those things.
order,
Yes,
right? That's the
if you
order.
can do it, right? In that sequence. However, you can't you take you if you follow that to a T, that could take years, right? That could take years. Like, for example, I'll just kind of express one of my projects takes 14 to 15 years to build. From the
Holy
moment you
smokes!
say and this includes siting, which is identifying the route, right? Doing the studies on the route, getting your permit on the route, and construction. So it's like from the moment you say I want to build it to the day it goes into service, right? Let's say it typically for the size of project I'm talking about, it's about 15 years. However, you don't always have time to wait 15 years, right? So because it's a when you say 15 years, because it's a start to finish relationship, meaning you start one activity and you don't start the next one until that activity is done, right?
Mm,
So it's a start to finish a relationship in your schedule. In order to try and be more efficient, but it adds more risk, you say, once I identify the route,
mm,
I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start acquiring the access or acquiring the land, and then you're saying when I'm about 70% of the way through acquiring the land, I'm gonna start the design, right? Because you're trying to time it perfectly that right when the design finishes, the land has been acquired and you start construction. So you stack them. You stack so that on this project, we're trying to build a 15, 16-year project in 7 years. So everything, what they call everything has to run in parallel. So there is some logic to saying, hey, you don't have to wait till you get all the land because
mm.
it might take 5 years. And then if you hold all construction, then you now it's going to be 2 years after you get the land. We could be waiting 10 years before we can put a shovel in the ground. So what you do is
Dang.
you try to stagger it. And so what happened here, from what I understand, was the government had said we have all the land acquired. Is what I've heard and I've seen in other areas.
Mm,
So yeah, bring the builder. Let's get the builder to go because we have all the land acquired. This is the same mistake they made with Maydek and Nemo, right? Oh, we got the lease. Start building the new headquarters. It's like, well, wait a second. Can we really validate that the lease is legitimate and there's no concerns with the
mm,
lease, right? So what it sounds like what happened is the previous government and so forth said, we got everything, bring them out to start building. And then what do we find out later? Oh, the lease, the land's not acquired yet. But it's already too late. You got your contractor mobilized. And
yeah.
now the contractor is out there losing money. And they're going to write in their contract where if it's owner caused delays. If the owner causes the delay, then you got to cover the costs of the contractor, right? And I'll tell you right now, one of the mistakes, and I've been on the builder side and I've been on the owner side. This is what I've learned. You have to find a builder that is the same level of sophisticated understanding as the owner. You have to be a good match,
Mm.
right? And I don't know these McDonald. What was the name of the company? Mc
McConnell.
McConnell
Yeah.
Dowell, right? I don't know how big of a company they are,
New Zealand company.
but are they kind of like a top tier New Zealand
Usually,
company?
maybe they specialize in building like special projects like bridges, but to me, Fletcher is kind of like the big one for New Zealand. Fletcher Construction.
Hmm.
I'm sure you've heard of Fletcher. That's
Yes,
kind of like
Royco
New
Fletcher
Zealand.
in Tonga.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, let's look them up because here's the thing that I'm talking about. You have to have a very good partner, but they have to be somewhat on the same level as you. Because if the builder is more sophisticated than the owner, then they'll take advantage of that, right?
Mm.
Like let me give you an example. And let's see who these guys are. Let's share this tab, bring it up. This is important. I mean, I'm passionate about it because this is my background, right? Like this is what I do for work and so forth. So let's McConnell Dowell is a major engineering
Mm.
led multidiscipline infrastructure construction company founded in New Zealand in 1961 by engineers, creative construction ownership and scale. It is wholly owned subsidiary of Avang Limited, a South African infrastructure mining and building group.
Okay.
So they're internationally owned.
Mm.
I'm trying to see what their revenue. So capable water and wastewater, civil and transport, marine, coastal, mechanical fabrication, tunneling, underground. Okay, if they're doing tunneling, that's really pretty sophisticated. Um, what's their annual notable projects and activity? Let's see. Let's see what's their annual revenue.
Revenue.
And let's see how big they are as an organization because typically, right, because you're going to negotiate a contract, right? And I've
Yeah.
been a part of many contracts, multi-billion-dollar contracts, and 90% of it is how do you address risk? Who owns what risk? Oh, dude, yeah, they're pretty big. 2.3 billion Australian.
Mm.
So they're big. They're a multi-billion dollar
Okay.
company.
I
So
learned
they're
something
they're
new.
legit.
Okay.
They're legit. Okay. So let me tell you, this is the problem. You have a multi-billion dollar entity who day in and day out, they're building contracts on putting risk, as much risk on the owner, and then
Mm,
and then the owner is trying to put as much risk on the builder, right? You're trying to go back and forth. You know,
mm.
I've negotiated contracts up to the very last second, and they're supposed to mobilize the next day, and we're still going back and forth on the
Mm.
contract, arguing about force majeure, owner cause delay, insurance,
What
what's
is that
covered
force
in the
majeure?
insurance.
What is that?
So force majeure is a act of God, meaning meaning like a tornado hits, or
And natural
or
disasters or
a
something.
natural disaster, or a ship. Your materials were being shipped across the ocean, and some crazy thing happened. Your container falls into the ocean, or that ship sinks. Like, I don't have control over that, right? It's just an act of God, force majeure. You have insurance. You have, like, if something like that happens, it goes into force majeure, meaning you're not going to hold me liable for the delay, because I didn't make the decisions in time. This wasn't, my design was bad. This was just something crazy happened and we couldn't account for it. Right. So this is the problem. You have a multi-billion-dollar company who has lawyers and project managers and engineers. And then we have, I don't know who is negotiating this from Tonga side. I don't know if it's the Ministry of Infrastructure, whatever. They are outmatched
Mm.
severely, severely outmatched. Tonga doesn't build large infrastructure
Infrastructure.
projects, right? They don't know, like, what are the pitfalls that happens. Like, and so they, without seeing the contract, I could almost tell you these McConnell Dowell guys are putting all the risk on the Tongan government side,
Mm.
right?
And they're
And
racking it up. It looks like, right? They're racking
exactly,
it up.
yeah, because I'm going
Millions
to
of
tell
dollars
you
they lose.
what these costs are usually driven by, right? It's usually driven by equipment and manpower, and you
Mm.
usually come up with terms, for either you go by liquidated damages, which is every day is X amount of dollars, which you come up with that by saying, or you come up with, I'm going to tell you how much manpower I have on site, how much equipment I have on site, and you call it standby time. And what's always tied to that standby time? There's a
What?
percentage of
Mm.
profit on it. So,
Mm.
can you imagine these guys? They're like, I have no risk. My guys are there. You're going to pay me what they're costing, and you're going to pay me the revenue I would have made on top of that. So they're just sitting there. It's like, okay, Tonga,
They're
let me know
they're
when you're ready.
they're over there just drinking green coconuts and still getting paid on the
Exactly.
on the you know the incompetency of the negotiated contract
Yeah.
from the
I mean,
government side.
I've been on, so one of my projects on my previous company was my role. I was there. They had like maybe 5 project managers. This is
Mhm.
a multi-billion-dollar project. My job was only, you have one guy just focuses on buying this type of material. The other guy is just focused on this scope of work. My job on this project was change management. My whole job was, where is it that there is a change that we should charge the owner for? Right? That was my
Mm,
single job. Before we even mobilized on site, we had like a $30 million change order.
mm,
Before we even moved on site, right? Because it was owner caused delay. By the end of that project, it was around 300 million in change orders.
mm,
So I'm what
mm.
the reason why I'm bringing this up is, like, do you see how sophisticated these construction companies are?
Yeah.
And then we have our government, whoever or whatever is negotiating, guys. It's a mismatch. This is like sending a middleweight guy to go and box a heavyweight champion.
Mm,
You know,
mm,
McDowell, these McDowell or McConnell Dowell group, that's an internationally owned company that does billions of dollars. This is their bread and butter,
Yeah.
you know? And so number one, even when you know what you're doing, it's high risk. And then look at how we fumbled the Tonga Power and the Maydeck deal. Are we at
Yeah.
all surprised that we're fumbling this and it's costing us tens
Much
of
more.
millions of dollars?
Much more money than the previous one, but still, that was a cause of concern.
Yes.
Sounds like a
Hey,
good deal to me.
all things Tonga, paying member of the Polynesian Ice podcast says, sound like a good deal to me. Yeah, where can I get can I negotiate a contract with Tonga Power and the Tongan government? You know,
Yeah.
where I can get a deal like that. Malo, all things Tonga. Hello,
Yeah,
Malo.
all things Tonga. Yeah, all things Tonga. And he probably has some understanding because he's still waiting for some approval and permits with his land. Because I've seen some of your episode, all things Tonga. So I know regarding these things take some time, but usually when it takes some time and then on top it takes some time, so it's long to negotiate. And on top of that, you made a bad deal. That's lose lose on both ends of the
Yes. No,
of the floor.
exactly.
So
No, that's the kind of
eh,
stuff that like I'm not trying to say anything. I mean, it's just Tonga, we can't. And then look at that, like the business decision. We're gonna lease it for 30 years for $1.
jeez.
Like that's the kind of thinking we're taking to negotiate with multi-billion-dollar companies,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And then I'm like, well, at the very least, I hope the Tongan government at least hired lawyers from New Zealand, Australia, or whatever to at least represent them. At the very least, at least hire lawyers that will look at it and just say, hey, this is what the builder should expect. But it's a little more complicated than that. It's not just getting the lawyers for the contract negotiation, even when their pricing is submitted, right? Because prices are submitted, but there's exclusions and exceptions that you have to be aware of, that this price doesn't include X, Y, and Z. And you have to take that into account as to the reason why the builder is not taking X, Y, and Z, because there's risk tied with it. And they're trying to get the owner to accept those exceptions so that they don't carry the risk. When in reality, the owner should push back and say, no, I don't control that. You control that. Therefore, you should put a price for that number. Anyways,
Oh, yo,
that's my
yeah.
thing.
No, I was gonna say, well, I guess the government and then also the people of Tonga can get some blame because at the end of the day, they're the ones who voted for this government since
No,
since
not
back then.
100%.
So this is a education for even
The
all the
voter,
people of Tonga. Don't just vote
100%.
for somebody because they gave you a fish uh last night, bro. Eh? Or somebody who gave you some kumala or a ufi or whatever for your birthday or something. I mean, those things are important, those relationships, but like you got to think a little bit bigger because like what you brought to it, this is a perfect scenario of why you've got to have competent people. Just because, and this is the thing too, I think these things are like this is like work experience. A lot of these guys went to school, apparently, they went to good schools, but work experience matters, man. There's a lot of
Oh,
things
yeah.
in the school build, in the classroom with AC, reading some books and stuff, and you pass the exams is a lot different when you actually get your first job and actually get some work experience that really, really matters that prepare you for these scenarios. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking because obviously we have a lot of people that get went to good schools and have masters and doctorate degrees, but the it's not
Yes.
the same compared to a work experience that you've accumulated and you know what to expect when you head to these negotiations to that's what I'm trying to compare here because you know it matters, work
Yeah.
experience compared to what you've studied, you know
No, 100%. And this is why, like, these academics are dangerous, so to speak, is because, and I'm trying to find the video, but I probably, oh, right here. Right here. I found it.
okay.
I found the video here. Like, this is the danger of academics. Number one, before we go to it, I want to highlight 100% what you said. This is why who you vote for and who you choose in the elections matter,
Mm.
right? Because these people are not just dealing with village and internal ministry stuff. These are the people that are going to represent you on an international scale that will impact your quality of living. Like even before we go to the international, just look at the Tonga Power deal. I just can't emphasize
Yeah,
like how stupid of a decision that was. Like those those are the people who you voted for chose the board of
yep,
Tonga Power, and then those people who are the ones who choose the CEO of these public enterprises,
correct.
and they are the ones that are going to make decisions that determine how much you pay for your electricity or how reliable your electricity is, right? So for all of those in Tonga who are like, oh, to mate uhila fakahela, fini hataha de ne lava fai ngā we, or at the very least, o wahano atamai, to
Mm.
pick someone, attract the talent to come and make those decisions. That's the problem that they're facing, because if Tonga Power leased it properly to Maydeck and it's funded by Asian Development Bank and made, let's say, $1 million a year, that money could have gone to Tonga Power to go and build something or do
Mm.
something, right?
Mm.
More trucks, more training for their people, improve the
Less,
service. I
less,
mean,
less,
yeah,
less opportunities to have blackouts in Tonga here and there
exactly,
that the
right?
people are always complaining. Yeah,
So that's what I'm saying. Like what you, the point you're bringing up, Mussy, is important. Is who you vote for matters, right?
yeah,
And it's a balance of relationships, but also competency and
yeah,
people who will do the right thing, because it's a combination of all those three things. You're not always going to find the most competent person, right? You're not always going to find the most educated person. You're not always going to find the most trustworthy person. You're trying to balance that and go back to what the king said. Fili whakapoto-poto. Fili whakapoto-poto doesn't mean be perfect. It means
yeah,
be wise, right?
yes,
Like make the best choice. Don't just, oh, koe tama koe ni o kuha mo ha, feed him just for the sake of choosing him. No, think it through. Why is this person better with my vote than the other person?
yes.
Any thoughts before we come to this on why? Oh shoot, it's a whole episode. I thought it was him. Maybe it's just the intro here that covers it. But any thoughts before we play this?
No, go straight to the video.
Hopefully, it's just this is part of the intro where he talks about it, but he talks about why academics are so dangerous.
People can come up with some of the dumbest and most insane ideas.
I felt like it's very important that we bring in an evolutionary
Oh,
psychologist.
it's not. This is not it. Dang it! But it's him, and basically what he says in the
Yeah.
video that I was thinking of is because these academics and politicians, but academics especially, they live in the world of like ideas and fluff.
Mm.
And then once those bad ideas go out, they're never responsible, right? It's not like you're the CEO of a business, you make bad decisions, well, your
Yeah,
business dies,
you're accountable. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
The problem with academics is they've built this theory and this idea, just like Marxism, this terrible idea, but they're not accountable for it because other people will implement it and they can always find an excuse for it. There's no accountability. The same problem with this is why they should have hired a Tonga Power CEO for years. I went what 4 years without a CEO,
it's it's been a while. Yeah, during that time.
right? So, anyways, I didn't find the video I was thinking of, but yeah, any thoughts on that? And I'll search one more time to see if I can find it.
No, no, because at the day, at the end of the day, this happened during the 2010 where the election was expanded for the people, and the people have made because there's obviously been good candidates, they just haven't been chosen.
How come
And
almost every
oh,
single time bad
I'm hearing background. Okay, there we
Yes,
go.
go ahead.
So my thing is the people have a blame. It's because at the end of the day, they have the power who elected the officials, and the officials act a certain way because they were elected, and that's what the people chosen. So, hopefully, come on, my people in the kingdom, make better choices. And it's actually gonna get more important for the ones who actually vote. Because I don't know if you heard to it, but like the last election that happened, only 46% of the population of Tonga voted. So it was less than half. So this government was elected on a 40%, 46% of eligible voters
Participation.
that participated. So, I'm just saying, hopefully people will get faith back into the voting process of electing their leaders. But the ones who did vote, this is part of the accountability that you must suffer if you voted people that didn't do the right thing. So yeah,
Mm,
we shall see.
yes. Here's the video. I think I got it.
How come almost every single time bad ideas come from universities?
So Orwell answered it one way. It takes intellectuals to come up with some of the dumbest ideas.
Yes.
And I wholeheartedly agree with that. Now, why is that? The academic who literally lives in the ivory tower is fully decoupled from the autocorrective mechanism of reality, right? So for example, I am housed in a business school. In the business school, there is less parasitic ideas because if you build an economic model to predict the economy that's based on postmodernism, reality will tell you you suck. Engineering schools also have less parasitic ideas because if you build a bridge using postmodernist indigenous physics, then the bridge will collapse. So some disciplines have an inoculation against these parasitic ideas, but in other disciplines, in the humanities and some of the social sciences, I could sit on top of my pulpit, pontificate about nonsense. There isn't an autocorrective mechanism called reality, and that's why I become the promulgator of nonsense.
Mm,
Now you see
interesting.
why? You see why
Mm,
this is the same thing when you have bad governments and bad ideas never. This is why on the Polynesian Eyes podcast we say let the ideas compete, right?
yes.
That it's
Yes.
it's it's not a bad thing if your bad idea gets slaughtered immediately. Trust me, it was a good thing,
Yeah.
right? But then we have, and that will be maybe any thoughts on this. We'll use that as our segue to the next part where we're going to talk about a bunch of bad ideas about our Polynesian history.
Mm. No, real work experience really matters. And I think the US is starting to kind of lean more, businesses and stuff are starting to lean more to work, real work experience. And we're saying education helps you propel you to that, but it's a lot different once you start applying what the real work experience is like, that knowledge, and it's much more attainable and you get better results. Because like I said, our leaders have been to they have their doctorates, they have masters and gone to some good schools, but this is a they're not used to dealing and negotiating with multi-billion-dollar companies who have a lot more experts that's in used to this fight with bigger countries, and they're just racking it up with some of the penalties, you know, uh, that's they're collecting from the government that we shouldn't be losing, because we can use every bit of money to build the infrastructure of Tonga. So that's just my thoughts there.
And you know what's funny, Masi,
Hmm.
is it wouldn't be surprising to me because I have dealt with some companies. 90% of the negotiation of the contract's not even done by a lawyer. It's by
Mm,
a contracting administrator who's just done contracts for so long. They
yeah.
already know. They already know their preferred stance on insurance, their preferred stance on liquidated damages. They already know all the things that they want to get out of a contract. That many times, because a lawyer is expensive, right? They're like, I'm going to train in a contract administrator, and
That's all they
90% of the
focus on.
work,
Yeah. Mm,
exactly. So it would be hilarious to me, and I wouldn't be surprised if this happened. The construction firm or engineering firm doesn't even have a lawyer. They have a contract administrator. And then we have our PhDs and our Oxford graduates representing our Tongan government and negotiated a deal. and the contract administrator took the guy from the Ivy League school to town because he knows he's like, welcome to my house. You're right. The contract administrator is like, welcome to my house. I know this space like the back of my hand. There ain't no way you're gonna out leverage me. So that would be funny if we were to find out that that's what happened here on the bridge negotiations. So yeah, and here's the other thing too. And this is, depending on the contract, things that can be negotiated is sometimes when there's like, here's one thing you could do as an owner. You say, if I cause a delay, it's not going to be financial. I'll just give you relief on the liquidated damages. Like, there's ways to negotiate it that hopefully they can drive that 17 million down to like $5 million by giving more favorable terms on the contract. But I don't know if they'll go there or not. All right, next. Let me bring this here to the front. So we get
of Polynesia.
Yes, roots of Polynesia, right? So we get accused all the time, Mr. Aotearoa. This is what I see all the time from our brothers and sisters, mostly from Samoa, but our brothers and sisters, they're all like, you guys are so disrespectful when you guys talk about your history, and you guys only talk about how Tonga was the center of the empire and blah, blah, blah. You guys are just in denial, so disrespectful. And then, and then the other one is, whoa, you guys can't stop talking about Samoa. And I'm like, well, it's not our fault that people like this put this up there and then tag us. They tag us. Right?
Obviously, they're watching. Obviously, they're consuming a lot of our content if they're tagging us and want us to react to their makeshift, put together, scrambling house of histories here and there.
Yes. and notice, this is some of those videos. So just a fair warning out there to everyone who's going to say, oh, you can't stop talking about Samoa. It's like, well, number one, you guys keep tagging us and telling us how and why we're wrong. But here's we're going to just start with these 3 videos, but we'll start with this middle one because this is a classic example of an academic who shares a perspective that we're like, that doesn't fit reality and it doesn't seem to match with the evidence.
Okay.
We'll react to some of these videos. Let's start with this one first.
Of Tongan heritage, and Langi also symbolically means in Tongan oral history Samoa, and Mama means Tonga.
Lang and Mama both mean sky and earth, respectively. There's a third, Pulotu, which is the symbolic name for Fiji. Of all 3, they all metaphorically represent the past, present, and future, respectively.
Samoans were often invited to Tonga as master boat builders and to design burial grounds for royalty.
This sleepy village of Moa was once a seat of power in ancient Tonga. And here you'll find these unique pyramid-like structures known as langi. These langi are physical reminders of our ancient dynasties. Similar structures can be found all over Samoa, also used as burial mounds for their high chiefs. Perhaps a hint at the king's Samoan heritage and beliefs, symbolically returning back to Samoa as a final resting place.
Kapauna ko tau mo ui ko ni I he taimi ko ia ko o tua tu tonga ai. Te topu tapu hono sino pa ko founga o tau tau ki tau tolu ki ai na e fai ki herere ita. Ko tau tolu kai ke fai ho tau fatongia. Na o mai ai ke tau tau ki aki. Ki nau tolu. Kapau te utala whakatata. Tanga fe tu ai o tulangi. Tolo tonga I heni ai toko lau kilu. Ko nau fai e ngā ue koe o tulangi. O kutalaki he ngahi a honi tokua na e whaka ngā ue pōpura I nau tolu. No. Koe tu I tō ngāna I toko tahape. Ka pau na anau pōpura. O se fuoloa hono tamate e tu I tapuange pe mo e tu I mi ono aho mo ka hou e ki. He futokolahi ange kakai. Kako he uhinga nei kai ke whai pehe ai. He nā nau whai nau tole ngā ue koe tui. Ko e nau tui, te nau mau ho nau inasi mo nau tāpuaki pia me he tui. Hange pe koe tau whai e mea ke lotu.
Before, we were slaves of the kings and the nobles. If we say something, we're gonna be killed. Our lives were under the control of the nobles and the kings.
And Tonga's way of differentiating between the royalty and the nobles and then the common people. I understand that at some points it was the way of life, and that the common person's life was worth as much as the next rock, and it was dispensable, and their purpose for living was to serve. That was there before Captain Cook arrived in Tonga. When he arrived in Tonga, he noted that there was a big difference in the common people and then also the royal household.
But King George VI, he gave our freedom on the 4th of June 1862. And in 1875, he gave our constitution. And in our constitution, we are free from the bondage of the chief abusing us.
King George II often voyaged to Samoa, opening new chapels at 3 different places. Upon his return, he wrote a letter to the Wesleyan missionaries. Documented in the 1855 book Tonga and the Friendly Islands, he wrote, "Dear friends, I, George, having just returned from Samoa, think proper to inform you of the reason of my voyage there and the cause of my interfering with the people of Samoa. The relationship of Tonga and Samoa people has been of old. From thence, Samoa, sprang our progenitors, ancestors, the governing families of Tonga as the family of Tui Tonga and Tui Kanokopol U, the latter being the family of Tupou, king of Tonga, and of George, king of Vava'u and Ha'abai, which is the same with the chief Mumui. There are 3 languages in Tonga, one for the royals, one for the nobles, and then one for the common people. The royal language is made up of mostly borrowed Samoan terms, as Fuda Helu mentions in his book. This is why it can be drastically different from the other language tiers. The royal language is almost identical to the Samoan formal way of speaking, upu fa'a'aloalo. These tiers were explained further by Professor Fuda Helu, a Tongan philosopher, historian, and educator. In his 1999 book, Cultural Perspective of the South Seas, he wrote, "As far as Tongan culture is concerned, human beings are never born equal in dignity and rights. It is not at all unusual, in fact, it is quite common, to hear common people referred to by chiefs as manu, animals, the favorite species identified with the lower orders being puaka, swine. This characteristic of Tongan culture is crystallized in language with its 3 tiers, one for the monarch, one for the chiefs, and one for commoners. The royal language is largely of borrowed terms, mainly from Samoa, whilst the language for commoners is made up entirely of derogatory terminology for animals and animal behavior. To give an example at random, the royal term for child is alo, which is the formal or poetical word for womb. The chiefly terms are foha, son, and ofafina, daughter. But the formal term for a commoner's son or daughter is uhiki, animal young.
I'm of Tongan heritage.
Pause there, and then we'll walk through. But any kind of thoughts, and then I want to replay this, and then we'll react to it point by point. Now that we've
Watch the
for
whole thing.
anyone who's watched it for context, who say, "Oh, you didn't listen to the whole thing all the way through." No, we listened through the whole thing. But initial thoughts before we go to some comments that I see, and then responding to each point in there.
No, it's like it's kind of with the whole debating of what is a woman going right now. It's like they give you all these things to us, like this is the truth, but like it doesn't feel right. You don't look right, and you don't sound right. You know what I mean? Even though you can throw whatever you can, you just something doesn't feel right, and people are still trying to trying to figure out like putting this up when it's like it's so there's a lot of cut and paste and here and there. It's like it just doesn't sound right, and it's easy to dismantle that. It's gonna be pretty easy. But we'll go ahead uh, and talk about it
Deconstruct.
and
Let's use
deconstruct.
what educators say. We're gonna deconstruct this.
Deconstruct. There we go. There we go. But
So
those are
here's
my initial thoughts.
okay. Here's some questions from UTOL Pay, member of the Polynesian Eyes podcast. He says, "Yeah, I came across that Facebook page last night. Asked them to jump on and explain themselves. They will run off like everyone else. You know what's
Yeah.
funny? What's funny is so far the only people that have taken our invitation to join us has been a Tongan who disagreed with us about Tongan history. We
Yeah.
did the recording. We'll release it soon, but we've invited them. UTOL. We want them, and I was going to bring this point up as well later on, but UTOL says, did they use AI to make it sound like it was the same reporter's voice for the Langi in Samoa?
In
Yes, it
Samoa,
was.
yeah.
Yes, it was. Because we've seen that video, UTOL. We covered it on a previous podcast, and that little part making it sound like it was the same report, that part's not in there. They added that, and they tried to match the voice of the lady to make it look like it was the same thing. Going back to what Masi said, cutting pieces, putting this, it's like, so it's an idea, but it's like a zombie idea. The arm came from a different human being. The legs came. It's it's
they created
Frankenstein.
they grabbed the dude and put some makeup and do the hair and do all these things. They say this is what is a woman, and then you find out like, nah, that doesn't look right, sound right, or that's called the fareti fafafine, man. That's not what it is. And they're trying to say that's what is being presented, but it'll be easy to cut to the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, so funny, hilarious. Like let's go through the first part. We'll do the Langi, Mama, and Pulotu first.
Correct.
We'll go through that here.
And Langi also symbolically means in Tongan oral history Samoa, and Mama means Tonga.
Lang and Mama both mean sky and earth, respectively. There's a third, Pulotu, which is the symbolic name for Fiji. Of all three, they all metaphorically represent the past, present, and future, respectively.
Right, Masi.
I'll go give my thoughts.
Yeah,
breakdown?
I'm assuming you heard this oral history all your life in Tonga, because she said
No.
that's oral history. It seems to be settled science.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's incorrect because I don't know where she got that from. She probably read it from one of those books that the Palangi said that this is what it's recorded as Tongan history. But I to me the whole Langi and Mama being Langi is Samoa and Mama being Tonga, that it's just that doesn't make sense because Langi is also in Tongan, and why is I've never heard of Mama being just exclusively Tongan. It could it could mean something else. So I don't know why this has been confirmed as
Not a lot of people know this.
Sorry, go
has
ahead.
been has been confirmed as separate, but that's incorrect. And then regarding Mahina's thoughts, Dr. Mahina,
I'm of Tongan heritage, and Langi also
I'm hearing something in the background.
I thought I put it on mute. Go ahead.
No, you're good. No, but with Mahina's thoughts with Langi, Langi is not just a sky exclusively. That's the land of the landmarks of the residents of the Tuitonga was Langi, right? So that's that Pulotu. Maybe it can be a reference to Fiji, but the accurate translation of Pulotu and even the way it's used is a spiritual world, spiritual realm of the spirits going to um afterlife. And I've heard some people use it as a spiritual realm even for reference to prior to coming to earth, like a pre-existence kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thoughts there just regarding those two, but I don't know if you had anything else or we'll just go straight ahead.
First off, I have no idea how he came with that conclusion. I've never heard that. I never heard that. I seen this video before,
Uh-huh.
but the first time I ever heard that was with this video. Like never
Mhm.
heard that, literally, right? Never heard that Langi meant Samoa.
Mm.
Never heard that in my entire life. And he says, "Oh, it means heaven." This is exactly why people started to believe that Tangaloa was a god, was
Yeah.
because we said, "Oh, he lives in Langi," and we find out later it was like, "Well, the Tuitonga lives on a Langi. Does that
Yeah.
mean he lives in the heavens?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead, Mas.
No, and I was gonna say that seems to be the only transition of the Tangaloa having the same residence as the Tuitonga. Because if you notice, the other dynasties have changed their residence names. You know,
Yes,
the Tuihatagalawa you don't call their residence Langi, you say it's Afare because that's where all of them were buried, right? The Tuikalupolu, then you don't say the Afare, you say Malae, which is where they were buried. So, and Malae is the most common term because that's the mostly used word to explain for people for a cemetery or where people to bury. But see, those are the only ones that changed. But Tangaloa and Tuitonga, maybe
the
because
same.
they're the only ones that seem to same when it transition. You know what I mean? Of like just the
Yeah.
hierarchy. So I just found that interesting. I was just thinking of that now.
No, and
When we
that's a
talk.
that's a good point. I mean, and this is why we say like that oral history of being Langi, where Tangaloa lived and where the Tuitonga lived, and that meaning Samoa. That is there's no. Let me put it this way: there is no evidence for that. There is no evidence for that. Pulotu is a little bit closer. You can at least say that in oral history it says Pulotu was to the west,
Yeah.
right? And this is an academic idea. This is not oral history. Oral history says Pulotu is to the west. The academics said, well, who's to the west? Fiji. Oh,
Fiji.
Pulotu must
Okay.
be in Fiji,
Yeah.
right? But that's not what oral history says. Oral history says Pulotu's to the west. Now, we take the Vitafales interpretation is the reason why Pulotu is to the west because that's where the sun sets,
Set.
and that represents when you die and you transition to the spirit world, right? Now, for Mama, meaning Tonga, never heard that my entire life, right? Oral history or songs or anything. Like the first time I ever heard that quote unquote interpretation was here. So this is the problem
Like
when you have
Puremere. When
yes,
like
like
Puremere.
Pulamele, like no one knows about that, right? We're like that Samoan lady who was in the video. Remember, she was going like this. She's like, Pulamele, I never heard that term. That
Yeah.
must be new
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
this it was always called with us. We were told it's called the Patonga because the
Yeah.
Tuitonga resided here. This is an exact same thing. But the academics, like, Brother Mahina here, which we've invited, we almost got him, but last minute he had a change in his schedule. And this is a shout out to Professor Mahina. We would love to have you. We would love to sit down and say, where did we get this knowledge and history of Mama being Tonga? I would love to
Mm.
understand that. And I would love to understand better where Langi meant Samoa. Like, I
Mm.
really don't know this. And this is the problem um, when you're in the academic space, and obviously in New Zealand, the prevailing thought is Samoa, Samoa, Samoa. So what are you gonna do when you want to get your PhD and you don't want to make waves? What are you gonna say? Oh, Samoa. You're gonna jump on the bandwagon, right? Which,
Mm-hmm.
but do you have to really change history? I don't think you need to. Comment here from Talangi, paying member of the Polynesian Eyes podcast. He says, my dad's Tongan and my mom's Samoan. Never in my 37 years of life did I ever hear Samoa means Langi. Shaking my head. I mean, we're all feeling like that one sister at the Pulamele Mount here, Talangi. We're all like,
It's like,
we never heard this before, but what do
yeah,
we
yeah,
know? Right?
yeah. She said she comes. She's like, man, when I came here, the gentleman who actually looked after this land said this was the Patonga, and this is where the Tuitongas would sit on, stay.
Yeah. No, hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I was trying to let's continue. I mean, dude, there is zero evidence for this. And we would
Yeah.
love to have anyone who wants to. But I was trying to show here. See, we get tagged on this stuff. We get tagged on multiple videos of these in the comments here. So, for everybody who likes to say, "Oh, you guys can't stop talking about us," it's like, well, because these type of videos keep popping up and people want us to respond, and we
Yeah.
will do so accordingly. Let's see. Let's come back to this. Um,
Present and future, respectively.
Samoans were often invited to Tonga as master boat builders and to design burial grounds for royalty.
Yahweh. Number one, were they invited or were they told? Or were
Most
they
likely to.
told?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Like
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think it was just more of a command to come because it could have been some family relations that married into, remember, it's all family relations, and in order to keep up family relations, because you have access to certain resources from the Tuitonga, which is its residents, your way of paying the or getting access to those resources was to work or to perform a task pertaining to what the Tuitonga wanted you to do. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
that's really what it is.
And here's the other funny thing, Masi. I can 100% malo malo UTOL. He
Malo.
says, ha ha, money lahe taurea. Um, I can tell you with almost 99% confidence this individual consumes our content at a very high level. And
Yes.
it has to do with Samoans were invited to come and design the langis. The only people that I have seen online share that message has been on the Polynesianized podcast. And it's because, we talk about Lakfue and the Pai
Hmm.
Pai Terea. So this individual has been watching and consuming our content and is trying to develop videos to counter some of our content. But I think it's hilarious because,
Put your face to it, man. This is
yeah,
so cheap shot. Come on. Get somebody who has a, let's just say, equivalent of the
mm,
Polynesianized podcast that can
yes,
discuss Samoa's history in details and even in depth, like we've kind of gone with
yeah.
the Tuitonga history and Polynesian history as a whole.
And it's funny to me, right? Because even in Fiji and even the Lemeki clan, a lot of those people were told, "Oh yeah, we came here to build boats."
Hmm.
Okay, it is already mathematically, scientifically proven there is only one king or polity that expanded its influence outside of Tonga, and that's Tatu Tonga. So if
Yeah.
anyone was telling anyone to move, what we would call internationally today, it's not going to be the Tui Manua. It's not going to be any of the Tui, was it Tui Aana and
Tuifiti.
all Tui, yeah,
Tuifiti.
the Tui Fiti, the Tui Pulotu, whatever. It's not them. It's only the Tui Tonga. So if you're moving internationally, it's not going to be under the authority of any other sovereign or king besides the Tuitonga in those days. So
Mm.
this idea that, like, the Samoans were just so great at these things that they were invited because they were like this independent civilization. It's like, no, 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 no. They were skilled and they knew how to work with stone.
Well,
They were told, come do the work.
yeah. Well, like, come do the work, skilled. But if they were so skilled, how come they couldn't build a langi in Upolu or Savai?
No,
They're not
remember,
that skilled. They're
Masi.
not that skilled. Like, they obviously they were skilled because they knew how to cut certain rocks, but the real masterpiece was whatever the word they use. You see, even the language. What was the tufunga langi? I don't know, but it was somebody who specialized in Tongatapu in building langi residences for the
Yeah,
Tuitonga. So I don't know if you call them the tufunga langi. I don't know, but it was that person that had the expertise. You could call it he was the project manager or whatever of of all these engineers throughout Polynesia, right? And invited them or tell them to come on behalf of the Tuitonga, they're gonna come because the Tuitonga was very powerful. He was the international sailing with warriors alliances all over throughout Polynesia. Most
Yeah,
people would obey
it's
to
the
come.
social stability to not be at war. It
Yes.
is the economic capacity to not only bring the people but to feed them. It's
Yeah.
the scientific knowledge to manage and do the engineering. I mean, this is why we say the ruins are so important. But don't worry, Masi, they're going to show us the ruins of Samoa that shows that the Langis were built, and we'll talk about that when we get there, right? Where they're like, "Hey,
Yeah.
look, there's the
Yeah.
Langis that they built in Samoa as well."
This sleepy village of Moa was once a seat of
So just look at the size of these, right? This is
Yeah.
like a residence, a large residence, 30, 40 meters long, and
And it
and
probably was shrunk over time.
over time. Yes.
Yeah.
So just see this, that apparently they built in Tonga, but let's see what they built in Samoa when they show what was built in Samoa.
power in ancient Tonga. And here you'll find these unique pyramid-like structures known as langi. These langi are physical reminders of our ancient dynasties. Similar structures can be found.
And this is where UTL was talking about. You see
I've seen I've
let's
seen
see.
those ones in Samoa, and I'm telling you, I can even build it. It's just like that. You give me some Tongans who build those rock walls, and everyone knows, all Polynesia knows, especially in the countries of America, even New Zealand, even in Australia. I've seen those ones. Those are just tiny rocks that you just stack like pyramids. Obviously, it's for somebody important, like somebody. I've seen them around, but dude, they're not even close to the Langi rocks, coral slabs that they use for the Langi. I'm just saying, and I don't know where it's somebody obviously is consuming highly of our content, like you mentioned, Tua, and is just trying to let's was artificially piece their evidence of Polynesia.
And here's the funny thing, right? You see how they edit it? Because this is not in the original video.
Eh,
This little piece, they edit it to make it sound like it's the same lady who's talking. So it
eh.
sounds like it's the same report, but it's not. This is stuff they injected.
This
A
reminds
for the effort,
hey,
right? A
hey
for the
for the
effort.
effort. This is somebody who probably in real life is a fraudster or something, man. They do for a living.
Oh,
Those random texts you get to say,
Masi,
"Hey, open insurance with our company by giving $100 a month." This is a professional scammer, right?
Masi,
You,
is this what's Mentai's girlfriend again? Is this the same AI? What's the name of
oh
the
yeah.
guy? What's the guy's name?
You would think, you would think, you would think. It could have not been, but the Hamoas should have learned their lesson with that Manti Teo because that already happened. There was a lot of fraud going on, and then look, they still haven't learned their lesson. They're still trying to redo it on this Polynesian history stuff. They still haven't learned their lesson, eh?
Yes, and
But
and,
who
and
could who?
Masi, is that what does that look like? Like 20 feet by 10 feet? What does that look like? The size
It's
of that?
it's
You've seen it.
it's I see. I don't know exactly the numbers of how big it is, but I'm just telling you, it is not big. I mean, it's impressive. It's impressive to see it, I think, but it's impressive if you haven't seen a langi. You know what I mean? Like it's just nice.
But this is
It was
do you see how hilarious this is? They show the Pai Telea with stones that were probably brought hundreds of miles away over the ocean,
yeah,
and then they're going to compare it to that what you see right there. Do you see how ridiculous this is?
yeah.
And we're
No,
we're
and
we're we're the unreasonable ones apparently.
yes, yes. So the Pai Pai Terea is it has soil on top of on top of well, on top of the coral slabs, and not only on that, where that langi is where land soil has been moved from inland to cover that. They used to be all ocean. So on top of that, just the langi, they haven't even talked about. See, this is how I know they're not into it. They haven't talked about the 100 acres of remade
Reclaimed land.
moved
Yeah.
land. Yes,
Masi,
yes. So
maybe there's a volcano under this burial here. Maybe we don't know the engineering that went into this.
yes, I'm telling you, you give me some of those wall rock wall builders around the best ones from from America, Australia, and New Zealand. They can make something even more fascinating than that in a month's time. You know, that's how easy that one is. It's not
Maria.
sophisticated at all.
Maria Masi.
And all over Samoa.
All
Also used
all over Samoa. How many of those did you see, Masi? They're all
The,
over.
ol- the only one I've seen is the one that's kind of in a Pia area, but it's not everywhere. It's not. It's
No,
not.
Masi, it's all over. You just missed it. I think your
It's
bias, your
it's
bias
all
is too
over.
strong.
It's all over for the ones who haven't been to Samoa, and they can have it in their head and say that's all over Samoa, but nah, that's not all over. See,
Oh yeah, UTOL paid member of the Polynesian Night podcast says they paid AI tokens for this. Yahweh. Talangi paying member of Polynesian Night podcast says those are called tunamau, or a burial for like a high chief made with iri iri. I think the kiri kiri, that's the
yeah,
volcanic rock, as they
yeah,
call in Hawaii, but it's not alangi at all.
yeah, yeah. No, I've seen Talangi. You're good because I've seen them too, but yeah, they're not. I mean, it's nice. It's just it's not impressive compared to Talangi. I mean, if we're gonna call about ancient infrastructure of our people,
And
you
when
know,
was that made?
engineering.
When was that made? 1800s?
Yeah, it's not the Tuikanong Polu line is much older than that stuff. That's what I would say. You know, I don't know if we have to touch to the Tui Hatagalawa line if it's older as the Tui Hatagalawa line, but it's more of that time frame of the early or just after when the Tuikanong Polu started. But it's not that
Oh
old.
yeah, wait. Talangi says 1950. See, and this is the kind of stuff that I think. No wonder why nobody. I don't blame that no one wants to come up here and challenge us, because if we had roots of Polynesia sitting right across from us, we would say, what are the dimensions of that, right? And then what are the dimensions of the Pai Pai Telea? And where did you get those rocks from? Was the rocks just from the white building behind there? And we go, Pai Pai Telea, the rocks possibly came from Uvea and maybe Ewa or some other. Either way, these are large scale. And this is what we got to deal with. This is why, like, I think it's so funny when people are like, Polynesian eyes, do you have answers for this? And they tag us and says, don't, and then they'll tag us and say, don't show this to Polynesian eyes. They will cry. And I'm like, cry? What is this? Right?
Yeah.
This is hilarious. Like, to me, it's just like this is what I'm supposed to be afraid of.
used as burial mounds for their high chiefs.
Oh yeah, wait, that was must.
Oh yeah, see that's the one I've seen. I mean that's just contemporary stuff, man. Come on. It's not that. It's hilarious. They're
Must-see.
pushing it.
I think that was built
man.
by the Tuimanua. or is that another Ufi pit?
Who knows? Who knows? The person who's creating this is really stretching it, man. He's trying really hard.
That's
really
why I'm
hard.
saying. What was the name of the guy who did Manti Dirty?
The Tuya Sosopo.
Was
Tuya
that Tuya?
Sosopo guy?
Somebody, please. This might be a Tuya Sosopo right here.
Yeah.
Perhaps a hint at the king's Samoan heritage and beliefs, symbolically returning back to Samoa as a
That's what Talangi is, guys. Talangis are the Tuitonga symbolically returning to Samoa. Right? Guys, the guy could go to Samoa if he wanted. If he really wanted to go back to Samoa, he would have got on his boat and gone to Samoa.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
somehow, the Langis is representative of when the Tuitonga dies and they go back to Samoa. You telling
Yeah.
me he can't get on the boat and go to Samoa to be buried? You telling me he couldn't do that if that's where he really wanted to be? There's a reason why he didn't get buried in Samoa.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 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 uh it's all about. There's a reason why Tonga is not just. There's another word they call Tonga Aiki, which is
Mhm.
the Aikis will be buried where the Aiki land is at. It's not just called Tonga Tapu. That's the common phrase, but people use Tonga Aiki as where the high Aiki blood chiefs come from, and wherever you are in the world, they'll have fun and anything, but ain't no place like home where you're from, where the
Mhm.
Aiki soil where you're at. So that's the main reason. No, there's no such thing as symbolically, because things will do symbolically if you can't really achieve it. But they could have done it in Samoa, because we even in the Fa'alupengas that we had with some of the Samoans that we had come on our show, even mentioned. See, and that's the thing. That's how you've noticed too with their Fa'alupenga, they didn't even touch the Tu'itonga. A lot of them just talked about the Tu'ihatagalawa line, right? And
Mhm.
that's not the earliest of the time of our kingly dynasties, especially the Tu'itonga, which is much older. That they only the Fa'alupenga, and that just goes with some of the history that it's kind of doesn't it doesn't encompass a lot of what the true history of Polynesia. Because we had I don't know if you can recall, Fitzy said Manu, and I think we had the other gentleman, I forgot his name, but they remember they
Danielu,
Danielu
Sunny.
Sani, yeah, pulled out some of the Fa'alupengas. It's names of, like, Lawaki and Motuapuaka and the Tu'ihatagalawa, or the son of the Tu'ihatagalawa. See, those are relatively earlier ones, but no mention of the Tu'itonga, which is by far the Tu'itonga that's been in Samoa
Yeah.
many
And
times and lived in Samoa a lot of times. Compared to those other two ones, like, Tau Fahau did go to Samoa many times, but I think regarding like residency, like actually living there, the only stories we have is the Tu'itonga with that five generation living in Samoa,
yes.
right?
Well, and here's the interesting thing. I want to bring this up because was it Maui Tekelangi who told us the story behind the Ulutolu?
Eh? Eh?
This is what I think is so hilarious, right? So our brothers and sisters from Ha'amoa say, "Oh, Ngata, the first Tuikan Kupolu, he just showed up because he was Samoan and they just took over the western part of Tongatapu." And then we find out about this Ulutolu, the three heads, right?
Mm?
And we found out the reason why they were tied together and Nuku and Niukapu were told to go with Ngata was because the people in Hihifo didn't want the Tuikanukupolu there. So Nuku and
Yeah.
Niukapu was to go with him because when they were waiting for Ngata to come, they're like, we're gonna tie this guy. Like,
Yeah,
you
it's a
know,
new lesser king. It's gonna take some
yes,
time to establish your
yeah,
authority, so you're
your
gonna need
authority.
some muscle to pay some. Like every human being, no, it takes
Yes,
a while. If you get a new law, if there's no consequence, why would you obey this new law from this authority that's just been established as of recent, right?
yeah,
Head what?
yeah. And who is the one that made that happen? It was the Tuihatagalawa and the Tuitonga who said, okay, guys, this is almost a repeat of
Of Hule,
Tupo
of
the
Hule.
first and Hule. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Where the Tuitonga said, we will have a Tuikan Kupolu and he will be residing in the West. And the Hihifo people said, nah, we ain't interested in that. So what do the Tuitonga and the Tuihatagalawa say? Okay, we're gonna give Nuku and Niukapu, your job is to make sure that you take Ngata, which I didn't know this until recently. the initial name was not Tu'ikanukupolu at first. It was Tu'ihihifo. It
Oh,
started as
really?
it started as
Okay.
Tu'ihihifo, and then it kind of like grew into the Tu'ikanukupolu. But when he was sent there, he was supposed to be the Tu'ihihifo, right? But I think it's funny, like this whole story from, oh, it's because he was Samoan. That's why, because he brought all the power and the influence to settle in Hihifo, and that's why it all just happened magically because he had a Samoan mom. And we're like, first off, they were marrying Samoan women all the time. Second off, they were always marrying women from Uvea, Futuna, Tahiti, Hawaii. This was not something unique to Samoa. And then third, hey, look, they had to take Tongan nobles to take Ngata in order to ensure that the Hihifo people submitted to the Tu'ihifo that would eventually become the Tu'ikanukupolu. So, but you know, Samoa is Langi. You know, Samoa is Langi. It means they're the most powerful, they're the most influential. See, this is when reality of, or more, at least more recognized oral history clashes with oral history that was made yesterday, like Langi Mama and Puloto. So I thought I wanted to bring this up because it is interesting, right? So
yeah, I didn't know that it was a Tu'ihifo, because it kind of goes with some of the. So was it like Tu'ihifo that was the? Was there actually a like bestowal of that title, or was it just called just like the Tu'i Vava'u and Tu'i Ha'apai, which was kind of just
no,
used,
it
but
was
it didn't
because it was,
eventuate to an actual title.
no, well, it was, that was what it was called. It was going to be the Tu'ihifo, but the difference between that role and the Tu'i Ha'apai and the Tu'i Vava'u is those were the Tu'i Ha'apai and the Tu'i Vava'u were not, did not have the Tu'i Tonga stamp of approval.
Okay.
Right? It like this, the Tu'i which eventually became the Tu'ikanukupolu, that had the Tu'i Tongas like, no, this is going to be a title. This is going to be recognized. The Tu'i Ha'apai and Tu'i Vava'u, it was whoever was the strongest dude in Ha'apai or Vava'u.
Yeah.
That guy said, I'm now the big boss of
The
Ha'apai
people,
and Vava'u.
yes, and the people of Ha'apai and Vava'u just kind of gave their approval of that name, kind of.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it wasn't recognized in Tonga Aiki.
Yeah, 100%. And so, and that's why, you know, the Ulukalala for years and years, multiple Ulukalalas were trying to make ground on Tonga Tapu. And, you know, they didn't have a lot of success. The only guy who had success was Taufa Ahau. But that's because, to me, Taufa Ahau, because if I remember correctly, his grandfather, it was his grandfather was the one that was assassinated.
Yeah, he was the known as the mean one. He would cut his cook's limbs off.
So
and still have them perform tasks.
Exactly. So at least Tupou the First had that tie, right? He had somewhat of a claim to that, and the fact that he, you know, grew up or spent a lot of time in Mu'a with the Taulas there, and same age as Laufiri Tonga, and it looks like, you know, possibly grew up together, had an interaction in the Velata, in the Matukwetau. So there's a lot of reasons why it seems like Tupou the First was much more successful than the Ukalalas before.
No, okay, yeah.
All right, let's come back. Let's come back to this amazing evidence, Masi. I hope you feel ashamed of yourself. These videos are just overwhelming with evidence.
Final resting place.
Ka pauna koe tau mo ui koe ni I he taimi koe ia, koe o tua I tui tonga ai. Pea topu tapu hono sino, pa koe founga o tau tauhi a tau tolu ki aina e whai ki he rere I ta. Ko tau tolu koe ke whai ho tau whatongia. Na e o mai ai ke tau tauhi a kia ki nau tolu. Ka pau te utala whakatata. Tanga whewhe tua e o tulangi. Lotonga I heni ai toko lau kilu. Koe nau whai e ngā ue koe o tulangi. O kutalaki he ngahi a honi tokua na e whaka ngā ue pōpura I nau tolu. No. Koe tui tonga na e toko tahape. Ka pau na anau pōpura. O sfuoloa hono tāmate e tui tapuange. Pe mo e tui mi ono aho mo kau hou eki. He futokolahi ange kakai. Ka ko he uhinga na kai ke whai pehe ai. He nā nau whai nau tole ngā ue koe tui. Ko e nau tui, te nau mau ho nau inasi mo nau tā puaki pia me he tui. Hange pe ko tau whai e mea ke lotu.
Before, we were slaves.
Interesting. I'd like to say something on that. Dua.
Yes.
That's that gentleman interesting take. Mostly agree, but at the same, I was thinking like regarding the Tuitonga, I don't, he didn't say, but they have been assassinated, even though the Tuitonga has been assassinated many times for whatever reasons, marriages, or even cruel. Because wow, you can even go to the Tuikapolo, it's the same kind of thing. He was assassinated because of cruelty. So obviously, was people doing it, doing the labor intensive and hard jobs where they kind of maybe into slavery was, it can be 50-50. One, it's that time when you're like the famous person people want to get close to, you like what he mentioned, like getting blessed, and you're probably getting some rewards and acquaintance with the Tuitonga and his entourage. So I don't know. I just found that interesting, just regarding that, because I feel like I'm trying to say, what would you call it? What would you call it? Like people who came and served the Tuitonga regarding infrastructure, because obviously there's going to be a lot of labor going to building the capital of Polynesia. So was it people that maybe misbehaved? Maybe there's a mix of that. Maybe there's other people who was skilled, like people that came to Tonga to move soil, move rocks. Maybe they were not think they were maybe much more skilled, but obviously maybe the like people doing the actual labor stuff. Maybe they could have been saved, but they couldn't really do anything about it because at the end of the day, the Tuitonga had the military power, and not only that, he had other alliances because by then, especially if he's talking to the Pai Pai Terea, there was already a Tuikangpolu and the is it Tuikangpolu? No, already a Tui Hatagalawa, and maybe the Tuikangpolu was created at that time or not yet, but I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts there. I don't know if you had anything else, but
Yeah, there's a couple things that I was gonna mention here. Is the first one is there were assassinations before, and this is very instructive for a lot of our Samoan brothers and sisters. With Kaulfonua Fekai, right? And Takalaua, his father, where the Tuiha Takalaua comes from. The oral history, at least from our brothers and sisters from Uvea, they say that the whole reason why that the second assassination happened was because the Tuitonga before Takalaua, and I can't remember the Tuitonga's name, his mother was from Uvea. So number one, we need this idea that like, oh, the Tuitongas were only marrying into Samoas, like that is
incorrect.
Fundamentally incorrect. They were marrying with Tongans, with Samoans, Uveans, Futunans, Hawaiian, Tahitians, and then from Niua, from Hapai, from all over. Marriage was used as a alliance and maintaining relationships and also political moves, right?
Yeah.
There were many chiefs who would love their daughter to be another wife of the Tuitonga because that elevated the whole family, right?
Yes.
Because even if that child doesn't become a Tuitonga, when they come back to whatever island, they're like
yes,
our family's like pedigree just got pushed up.
Yeah.
Right?
Escalated.
Even to the point that even Marietoa wanted to marry into the Tuitonga line. Right? Like this is not something that should be controversial at all. But what I'm getting to is the assassinations that happen, sometimes it's because of power struggles. Some people blame Takalaua for killing the Tuitonga, assassinating the Tuitonga before, who was Uvean, and Takalaua had Samoan wives and children, and one could argue they didn't the Samoans, if that's true, let's just assume that's true, the Samoan side of the politics didn't want an Uvean tuitonga, right? Like a Uvean mother tuitonga, because what does that, when if the tuitonga is from Uvea, who do you think is going to get some special treatment? Who do you think is going to get recognized a little bit more? Well, the Uvean people. And we all know that Uvea and Tonga have a very strong relationship. So one would only assume there were multiple marriages to Uvea, right? Because Tonga and Uvea are relatively very similar in a lot of ways. One could make the argument that maybe that's why the assassinations happened, is because the Samoan politics said, no, we want our guy, the one who has a Samoan mother, to be in power, because that keeps the relationship with Tonga and Samoa closer for those generations. But yeah, the other thing too is you notice how even this gentleman fundamentally doesn't understand that the Tuitonga was a religious thing. He makes the connection. He's like, hey, the reason why they do it to the Tuitonga is because they wanted to obey and follow, and they get their inasi and their tapwaki. He said, just like we do the church. No, you're correct. They were both driven by religion. The Tuitonga was seen as, quote unquote, the physical representative of the gods in the flesh, or if you want to use a modern term, a prophet, right? Like that was the physical representation, someone who speaks on behalf or represents the god or the gods. So it was driven by religion, right? And because at that point, the administrative, the political power was with the Tu'ihatagalaua. So building that langi of Paepae Terea was purely based off of family and religious relationships, right? And it would have been a privilege to go to Tonga, in my opinion, right? Imagine your Uraki Mata.
That was the city. Yes, that was the city of Polynesia.
Yes, for a couple of reasons. Number one, you want your guy who has a Samoan mother, who's the Tuitonga. You want to represent him well. You want him to be successful. So it would be out of family and out of religious dedication to go to Tonga and build Telea's langi, because he has a Samoan mother, right? And you want to maintain that. Second, just like that Tahitian guy who came with Captain Cook, and the Tahitian guy kept telling Captain Cook, number one, they were blown away by how many red feathers were there. Remember? And then that lady was giving red feathers away, which is that's like the equivalent of making it rain.
Yeah.
Right? And do you remember?
Yeah.
Yes. Remember what the Tahitian guy told Captain Cook? Grab the red feathers. And that's what he was doing. He was taking all the red feathers, and he says, you grab that, because with those red feathers, you can get whatever you want. Right? And so that is kind of a symbolic representation of the wealth, the influence, and how much resources was on Tongatapu. That if you're a guy in Samoa and says, oh man, we get to go to the capital, that's like going to America, right? We're going to go build this stuff. And not only do we say we got to America, but there's going to be wealth and access to resources that we can grab and take home with us, not to mention the prestige of, yeah, I went to Tonga. I helped build the Tuitonga's residence. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There are so many things that layer on top of it. And then, just like the Tahitian guy, grab all the red feathers he wanted, and he went back to Tahiti a millionaire in Tahiti terms, because he could get whatever he wanted, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too, and we'll get into this video, I don't like the term, it's incorrect to say slaves. That's an incorrect term, because I think it is relatively clear, especially in George Vason's book, that the common Tongan could go wherever they wanted,
Yeah.
right? That there were families on opposite sides of wars. People were leaving one chief to go to another chief, like they were going around. The better way to look at the situation was private property. This is why in America, private property is an important part of the Constitution and the American position. You cannot have freedom if you don't have private property. This is why you are allowed by law to defend not only yourself, but your property, right? Like someone attacks your property, you can shoot someone, like especially in states like Texas, you damage their property. That is the equivalent of trying to put them into slavery, so to speak, or putting them into in servitude. So really, what Tupou the First did that was revolutionary and really empowered the Tongan citizen, it's not that they were slaves. Slaves couldn't go wherever they wanted. A slave couldn't say, I want to go to that farm or I want to go to that farm. A slave was stuck wherever they stayed, and they were stuck with whatever they were paid. The average Tongan could say, oh, this chief is okay, but I heard the other chief is more kind and gives more, pays more. We're going to go to that chief. Like even to the point that Tongans were going to George Vason because they heard that George Vason's farm was flourishing and he was much kinder and gave more to the people who lived on his land, that they would go to George Vason and ask them, hey, can we live with you? We will work for you and you can pay us food and everything.
Yeah.
It's not the correct way to think about the way the commoner was, that it was slave. No, it was they had no rights to private property. And because they had no rights to private property, they had no option but to offer their labor to the chief in order to get resources. What Tupou the First came in and said, it's like, stop, we're not going to do that. We're going to give each individual Tongan male and access to land so that he can grow his own foods. He can use his private property to free himself. So I wanted to add that because we're going to go into this part. It was like, oh, we were slaves. It's not a very accurate way to look at it.
So I'm just thinking like, the cooks of Tuguaho, Tupou the First's grandfather, that were cut. They had to just stay there because maybe their families had nowhere else to go or something. Because I'm just trying to think, why would he cut their arms and they would still stay there to try to still do the task of Tuguaho? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand in that context. What do you think? Was it just because they were they people that maybe they were not liked or accepted from anywhere else because they already lost their arms? They're not gonna the other chiefs wouldn't take them in because they're not useful. Only Tuguaho because he's having fun. I don't know. I'm just trying to understand that kind of concept. And even some of the stories of maybe some, I don't know. I'm just trying to understand. Maybe some people didn't have that choice, or because I'm just trying to understand. Like, there's the common folks, and then there's the ones who, like we call them the homeless people. They really don't have anywhere to go. It's just they'll stay there, and they have it's only
they don't have a
they're
lot
only
of
living
options.
day by day.
No, because and this is insight that we get from William Mariner and Ulukalala. Do you know what was the lowest role or responsibility in Tongan culture was?
The cooks.
The cooks.
Yeah.
So that is literally, you are at the very bottom of the totem pole. And why? Why is the cook considered the lowest rank? Because they don't, or at least this is what my thoughts are. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but the way because I thought about this when I read William Mariner's book, because the cook doesn't produce something or bring something unique to the table, right? Like if you could farm, you're producing something. Like you're that's the equivalent of being like an entrepreneur. You're adding to economic activity and value. if you're a tufunga, if you could make kava bowls, if you could build a boat, if you could make tools, if you could, weave mats, like that was a contribution into the economics, and you brought something to the table that you could barter and move with. Cooks, what are they bringing to the table? They're bringing production from other people and they're cooking it, but they're not really producing something adding into the economy or to the society in that level. And so that is
point.
probably why cooks was considered the lowest, right? And when you're a cook, you're a commoner, less options. When you're a cook, little to no options.
Okay, gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha. That's
And here's the option. Would I rather be a cook for the Tuikan Kupolu or a cook for a lower ranking chief? I'd rather be a cook for the Tuikan Kupolu because that still elevates me. Right? I mean, that's my thoughts. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Good point. No, good point. Good point.
Hey, Slick Rick, Malo, paying member of the Polynesianized podcast. Slick Rick says, Tui Tonga and the clans of Tonga Tapu come from the line of Shem. Malo Kautama. That's interesting. I've heard some people talk that people of the sun and Shem. That's a comment I've seen every once in a while. But Malo, Slick Rick, appreciate the support. Man, Masi, we're only going to get to one video, man. Let's get back to this. I thought we were going to do 3 videos when we were talking before the show, but there's we'll just get through this one video and we'll call it good.
Okay.
Nobles. If we say something, we're gonna be killed. Our lives were under the control of the nobles and the kings.
And Tonga's way of differentiating between the royalty and the nobles and then the common people. I understand that at some points it was the way of life, and that the common person's life was worth as much as the next rock, and it was dispensable, and their purpose for living was to serve. That was there before Captain Cook arrived in Tonga. When he arrived in Tonga, he noted that there was a big difference in the common people and then also the royal household.
But King George V, he gave our freedom on the 4th of June 1862, and in 1875 he gave our constitution, and in our constitution we are free from the bondage of the chief abusing us.
King George II
and I just want to kind of share here that this still exists to this day, and I'll give you an example. So my undergrad is in construction management, and for part of my my degree, we went to the Dominican Republic, right, to go visit a school of engineering. We went and visited some construction projects, and this is when I learned that like Venezuela had a lot of money invested in the Dominican Republic. They'd build these malls, like beautiful malls, huge malls. And one of the malls we were visiting, I think it was called the Blue Mall or the Diamond Mall. It was a huge mall, and then it had a Hilton hotel, 20 or 30 stories up on top of the mall. And we're walking around, and Haitians, right? There's Haitians and the Dominicans.
The poorest country in the Western Hemisphere.
Yes. So we're out there, and like, you got to remember, like, we're up there, we're like maybe 15 floors up, and there's a bunch of guys like working on the edge, no harness, no tie off, no nothing, right? And I'm like, oh man, like, yeah, people, this is dangerous, And I'm speaking with the project manager of the project, and he's a big dog there. He's doing one of the largest construction projects. So we're talking to him, and I ask him, hey, how's the project going? Any issues, any challenges that you guys have been facing? And he goes, oh, no. This project's gone perfectly. Masi, you know what I found out like 20 minutes later? They've had like 6 people die on that project.
Shit.
All Haitian. Right? And
Oh,
then I was
mm.
telling the guy who was kind of like our chauffeur, I was like, help me understand this. I just asked the project manager if there was any challenges with this project, and he said no, everything's going great. And you're telling me like 6 people died on this thing? I was like, in America, one person gets just severely injured, it's a big deal. Like, we shut down
Lawsuit,
stuff. Yeah,
lawsuit.
we
Yeah.
shut down everything. And he goes, Tua, I need you to understand. You notice when we were looking out there, all who's doing all the most dangerous work on the edge, doing all it's like, oh, it's all the Haitians. I said, unfortunately, Dominicans view Haitians lower or at the same level as a dog.
Mm.
So for him, a Haitian died, no big deal. Get the next one.
Mm.
Continue working. Right? Like, the reason why I'm saying that is they're using this like it's some kind of, oh, Tonga was terrible. It's like, no, first off, it was hundreds of years ago. Second off, that still exists to this day. Like, this is just an unfortunate reality of how society is. And even in certain countries, like, they don't see human beings as other human beings. They see other human beings as if they're like another species of animal, unfortunately. And it's terrible. But it's crazy. It's a crazy world we live in. All of a sudden, cutting off hands maybe doesn't look that bad when you're treating someone like a dog. I don't know.
No, good point. Good point. I mean, I'm just trying to say, if you want to put in the Samoan perspective, they have the Ali'i, then the Tula Fale, who are the talking chief, and then they have the lower rank, let's just say, untitled men, the Aumanga. That's what you would call them. They will do the riskiest stuff, and if one of them died, oh well, there's another one. You know what I mean? I don't know why they try to make this as like, dude, it's every part of human nature and
Every
society going
society
forward.
has it. Yeah.
So, you know, maybe they haven't had somebody speak into that terms to like that. It's like, dude, Haamoa, Samoa had the same thing. There's the Ali'i in the village, Tulafale, and then there's the untitled men called the Aumanga, and they're dispensable because they're the ones who are doing all the work for the talking and the high chiefs of the village. So
Yeah.
so they're the ones doing the riskier jobs too. It's just like everybody else, man.
Yep. No, 100%.
Often voyaged to Samoa,
Oh, this is a new
opening
one.
new
We've never
chapels
heard
at
this
3
one
different
before.
places. Upon his return, he wrote a letter to the Wesleyan missionaries. Documented in the 1855 book Tonga and the Friendly Islands, he wrote, "Dear friends, I, George, having just returned from Samoa, think proper to inform you of the reason of my voyage there and the cause of my interfering with the people of Samoa. The relationship of Tonga and Samoa people has been of old. From thence, Samoa, sprang our progenitors, ancestors, the governing families of Tonga as the family of Tui Tonga and Tui Kanokopol U, the latter being the family of Tupou, king of Tonga, and of George, king of Vava'u and Ha'abai, which is the same with the chief Mumui. There are 3 languages."
This is mind-boggling, Masi. Like,
I
how do
yeah, I
we
just
address that?
well, I would just say just type in Polynesianize to the first's letter. We broke it down to all the little bits, mainly because Tupo the First was the head, let's just say the head of the Wesleyan faith in the Polynesia in the Pacific, and he was just trying to help with Samoa in that time with the one with the church, the Wesleyan faith. Two, I think Samoa was actually going through a lot of. I think that time when we touched about the was it protectorate status, they were trying to seek help to try to not be colonized. And three, Tupou the First was probably the only one be able to write, be able to write, because most people at that time probably couldn't even write in Polynesia. And his reference of saying that progenitors is from the female side, the Tuitonga, the Tuihatagalawa, and the Tuikanakpolu. were always from, father to son kind of thing. Well, the Tuicarpolo kind of changed here and there because I think there was a time there was a woman into it, and then it didn't go into a son. It just because it was unstable for many times, so it did kind of change. But for sure, when Tupola first mentioned Tuitonga, it's always been father to son up to the last Tuitonga. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts there, Tua. Unless you had anything.
So let's imagine I wrote this letter,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where I say, I, Tualau Fale, I'm writing you to let you know why I went to America to talk to that. And I just want you to know that from America came my ancestors, right?
Mm.
And ancestors of my cousins and so forth are from America. That does not mean that my dad is from America. That does not mean that because I'm Tongan, that Tongans came from America,
Mm.
right? Like this is the way that we're trying to tell you guys is like it's accurate to the sense he's saying, yeah, my mom's family and some of my ancestors come from there, but that doesn't mean that all Tongans originate from there. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that. And this is just like this whole video, it is a slice and it's a snapshot. And we also have to take into account that Tupo the first, and it sounds like, I don't want to sound like, it appears that Tupo the first was trying to figure out how many islands he could cobble together under the Tongan flag, right? Like we know that he had family and stuff in Samoa and chiefs, Tongan chiefs in Samoa, Samoan chiefs in Tonga. So there was like, hey, should we include Samoa? We have the Niwas under us.
Yeah.
Should we have Samoa included in this? We also had Fiji and Mafu in Fiji and Tongans in Fiji. Should we include Fiji, the Lau Islands, in
Mm.
this nation we're trying to build? And he's trying to explain to the Europeans why he even went and messed with Samoa in the first place. And so we have to look at as what was Tupo the first. Eventually he said, we can't do much for Samoa. We can't do much for the Tongans in Fiji or the Tongans in Samoa. We just got to figure out how to survive with what we have right in front of us. If we try to
Yeah.
overextend ourselves, we'll get colonized. So it is much more. It'd be so funny if we were to talk to Poe the first here and goes, "Hey George, you know that one letter that you wrote? You were just trying to, extend your hand to the extended family to try and see, explain the politics of why you went to Samoa, because from what I understand, he didn't just go there and shake hands with people. He went there and flexed some military power to say, hey, why did they kill? Did they kill a missionary or something, or
Yeah.
attack
Yeah.
a missionary?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Attack the missionary of the Wesleyan faith that he was part of.
that he
Yeah.
sent there. So imagine this. Imagine you're a European power and you see that happen. That's the equivalent of Maafu, Takombau, and the other chiefs in Fiji fighting with each other.
Mm.
And the British have to come in and say, do I have to shut down everybody? Who here is trying to challenge whether I want to take over these islands or not? So to me, Tupou the first goes over there, he flexes some military and political power there, and he's writing the missionaries to tell them, hey, I'm not going there for, no reason. These are
Yeah.
family members of mine. Do not see this as a military expansionist
Mm.
deal here. This is family scuffle. right?
Yeah.
This is a family deal that I'm dealing with. Do not view it as me trying to be imperialistic, because if you were to show that, you might get the attention of the Germans, the British, and the Americans, and say, do we need to blow these boats out of the water, and do we need to go take care of Tonga if they're going to interfere in this? That's kind of like my 2 cents on that.
No, no, good.
All right, we're getting closer.
In Tonga, one for the royals, one for the nobles, and then one for the common people. The royal language is made up of mostly borrowed Samoan terms, as Fuda Helu mentions in his book. This is why it can be drastically different from the other language tiers. The royal language is almost identical to the Samoan formal way of speaking, upu fa'aalo alo. These tiers were explained further by Professor Fuda Helu, a Tongan philosopher, historian, and educator. In his 1999 book, Cultural Perspective of the South Seas, he wrote, "As far as Tongan culture is concerned, human beings are never born equal in dignity and rights. It is not at all unusual, in fact, it is quite common, to hear common people referred to by chiefs as manu, animals, the favorite species identified with the lower orders being puaka, swine. This characteristic of Tongan culture is crystallized in language with its 3 tiers, one for the monarch, one for the chiefs, and one for commoners. The royal language is largely of borrowed terms, mainly from Samoa, whilst the language for commoners is made up entirely of derogatory terminology for animals and animal behavior. To give an example at random, the royal term for child is alo, which is the formal or poetical word for womb. The chiefly terms are foha, son, and ofafina, daughter. But the formal term for a commoner's son or daughter is uhiki, animal young.
I'm of Tongan heritage.
Okay. Well, see, this is the thing that's kind of misunderstanding happening, because even in the Samoan language, there are certain terms you use for a common person. I'll give you an example, live example right now. When you say come for a normal person, you say sao, and then when you say to la fale, you can say susumai, and then for a li'i you say afiomai. So there's different terms that you use in all 3 languages for a talking chief, a high chief, and a common folk. And it's the same thing when you address for the food. You can say just a regular food, like a thing to eat, may I. Then you say for like talking chief, mea tausami. And then for something higher, the li. And like when they say a li, that's people usually the li's from the first contact of Samoans were very close and similar, like with no tattoos as Tongans. You say mea taumafa. So there's different there's different terms that you use. The only difference in Samoa, because you a lot of people use those terms for different things, but like it's just like every other thing. Like when they say with the languages, it's the same thing with the Samoan. So to me, it's just more Samoans and Tongans in the time is it's the same thing with what words you use. There's class of people that use certain words with certain occasion and events. Right now, people use different kind of words in the Samoan context because it's a lot more. Anyone can be a Matai.
Yeah,
Anyone
it's
can
not
be
as
any.
rigid and
It's
hierarchical as the Tongan.
and that's why people use more formal words in their interactions, because anyone can be a Matai. Anyone can be a talking chief if they really wanted to. In Tonga, it's more of a hereditary bloodline, that's why people use certain terms to address where you're from, because you don't just change overnight to be somewhere and get a title for the sake of getting it. In Samoa, it's very easy. Anyone getting a title if you wanted to the next night, and you can use certain terms because now you're a Matai for this and that. And we all know that's not as the same strict, rigid
So
in
there's the
Tongan.
same 3 levels of communication as well.
There is the same levels of communication. So that's why I'm saying it's not that rocket science. So with this person using it because of the language is like, dude, Samoan's the same thing. Samoans just tends to use more of, and who says if it's right? We say tui is the highest, and tui is a Tongan word. That's the highest title in Samoa. Tui Manua, Tui Tui Atua,
Ana, yeah.
Tui Aana, you know. So those are the much ancient and big titles. So
And I'm
when they
assuming
say
that
it's
those tuis would have the taumafa and all that, you know,
yeah,
alo and
yeah,
all that
and
other
that's
stuff.
why
They would get
yeah,
those titles. So it's basically the same thing.
it's yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with the Samoan hierarchy. But Samoan hierarchy, anyone can be a matai at the highest level. You just you give 50, you get 50,000 tala, you get a matai at any village, man. I'm telling you. Tala. If that's only 25 or less than 25 25 grand USD. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it ain't that I mean, you know, the matai has an important role, but I'm just saying getting a title there's a reason why the Tuitonga title is the most coveted in all titles in all of Polynesia. Samoa's titles very fluid. Anyone can get it. You like I said, you just
Apparently,
show up,
even someone with last name Young and both being and dad being of European descent.
decent, decent, pretty much, because the European came with the good food, and they said yes. Eh? With the kapapul, who knows? They probably came with the kapapulu, the pisupo, and who knows? They probably said yes.
They're like,
Ioy,
what else do you want? You want
ioy.
to Imanua? We'll give you to Imanua. You
You
know?
know what I mean? Yeah, I'm just saying it's kind of it's a silly argument, man.
And
Silly
just
argument.
think of this. They're saying that that is the most that Tuimanua is the most prestigious title because it is the origin of all the Polynesian Empire, and yet it was given to someone. I can't remember. First off, it was a girl. Well, can't remember her name, but the last
Yeah,
name was Young.
young.
Like
Yeah, it was a
the
yeah.
most prestigious title, the highest rank, and that's how it was handed out.
You give it over a tin fish and a tin cow, right? Come on, it doesn't make sense, man. It's too weak. It's too flawed. It don't make sense, man. Help me understand. Help me understand my Polynesian eyes viewers
Yeah,
on
chat,
this
chat.
live
Let
digital
help Mr.
live digital
Atearoa.
cover
Help Mr.
digital cover section.
Atearoa. Here's a couple comments. UTOL. Paid member of the Polynesian Ice Podcast says, remember the lands in Samoa that Tongan chiefs had during that time. 100%. Right? And it's documented. Even as early as like 1700s, there were Tongan chiefs in Tonga, in Samoa, because it was all, at the end of the day, it was all the same country, all the same people, same civilization.
Yeah.
UTOL says like the name of the Samoan rugby team, Manu. Yeah, like here's the funny thing. Number one, I, I don't know where Futahelu got the idea that they were borrowed terms from Samoa. Like I really don't know how that happens. Like, did he just happen to go to Samoa and he's like, oh, kind of like what you're saying, Masi. Everyone can be a Matai, and he just saw, oh, they use it commonly in
Yeah,
Samoa, so that
because
must be the
everyone can.
norm,
Yeah, yeah, because
right?
anyone can be it, and you want to address somebody as the higher term because anyone can be a matai.
Matai,
Yeah,
right? So it's much more fluid because, but then when you come to Tonga, it is very strict,
yeah.
right? The only
Your
time
role is strict.
you get the
Yes,
role, like you're not going to be called by the king's language if you're not the king. Like it's just not going to happen, right? Now with the nobility and the commoner, there is a little bit of fluidity there, right? Because if
yes,
you become a prime minister or
yes,
someone that's influential in the nation, I've seen some of the terminology between the noble or the hoeki mix a little bit, but
yes,
even then you still have to achieve a certain status in the nation. But the king,
yes,
clear separation in
yes.
there.
Yes, no, and I was gonna add, and you touched it a little bit. I don't know which episode, Thor, but you touched it in a little bit that that nobleman is a much more recent term. The whole because it used to be just the whole Aiki and whatever the
Hoeki.
Tui.
Yeah.
Yes, because the noblemen, there was a lot of people who was a very low rank chief that got elevated to a nobleman when the Constitution was created, and they were
Yes.
elevated a lot because maybe they were just alliance to Tupo the first, and he elevated because he needed at the end of when you're creating something new, sovereignty and stuff, you needed loyal people. But regarding rank status wise, they were much lower, and there were people that had no titles, but they were higher ranked status wise because of the parents they came from. So you touched a little bit of that, and that's why you kind of mentioned that noble and even some people coming who come from higher rank status from family line is a lot more fluid between those two.
Yes, and it's funny. Just so to kind of put a highlight on this, there are some nobles who are the nobles of certain villages and have no land in those villages.
Yeah.
Like that's because, like going along with what you're saying, they are not of higher blood rank from the Aiki. They're less Aiki, right? But they have more influence because they've been elevated to no pere, but they
Yes.
have less Aiki blood because
Yes.
Aiki did come down to how much blood you have tied to the Tuitonga. That's what drove Aiki. And so, like you said, when you're a new king trying to establish a new government,
Yep.
and you're going to have to develop nobles that their loyalty to Tupo the First was Tupo the First elevates me and my family, become
Yes.
a noble, right? That increases that. So I can see why Tupo the First did that. Probably was necessary,
Yeah.
and that's probably why by the time Tupo the Third came or Queen Salote, there was that risk because everybody's
Yeah.
like, well, you got all these people in charge, but should they be in charge? Do they have the achy blood that really is there? And then they made a smart move. They had Queen Salote marry the Tuiha Takalaua heir, and then all of a sudden, the achy blood gets injected into the whole
Yeah.
situation. That
And
solves a lot of problems.
yes. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring into mention here, just on the language, because Masi, just so you know, there's other videos that have this, and it was on TikTok that we were tagged on multiple times. And he
Mm.
goes, and this is why the Polynesian eyes will never talk about the three languages. Okay. Oh my gosh. I was like, am I supposed to be scared of this? Right. And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. When I come back to, there's 2 points I want to mention. I don't know how Putahelu came to that conclusion, which I agree with, right? Is they were all borrowed terms. Number one, we don't know how you can come to that conclusion they were borrowed. And I'll give you two
Yeah.
reasons why
He
it
didn't.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
One is he just heard the fluidity of the Samoan side, and he just thinks
Mhm.
that's normal terms. He may not have understood and lived in Samoa like you did, Masi, to kind of understand the nuances there. Second, scientifically, the Tongan language, we covered this on the last live, the Tongan language is considered older and closer to the Proto-Polynesian. And you have Proto-Polynesian, then the Tongic languages. Samoan, you have Proto-Polynesian, nuclear Polynesian language, I think it's what it's called, Samoic languages, and then underneath that is in the Samoa.
Mm-hmm.
So the Samoan language is what, 3 layers, 2-3 layers away from the Proto-Polynesian. Tonga is 1 layer away from the Proto-Polynesian. So one could make the argument, well, Tongan language is older. So if something's older, then who borrowed from who? One could make the argument from that scientific perspective that the Samoan words were borrowed from Tongan because the Tongan language is closer to the Proto-Polynesian. The other argument against that is you say, oh, Manu is only for animals and derogatory. What is the crown prince's son's name?
Manu Mataongo.
Oh, but I thought that's for animals. I thought that was below, right? Yet,
Yeah.
and Manu Mataongo means, quote unquote, if you want to use that definition, Manu, it's the animal or the being or the thing that, its face has an impact on me, right? I don't know if you
Yes.
want to say that loving face or whatever. But once again, if Manu is that terrible, according to Futahelu's interpretation of the words, then why is the crown prince's son named Manu Mataongo
Mm,
and what that could mean? Which
mm.
I'm pretty sure that Manu Mataongo is from a Tu'ihatakalawa or Tu'itonga
Yeah,
name
it is.
and line, an ancient name.
Yes.
So see, once again, this is when the oral history and reality doesn't align with quote unquote academic, right? We first had Mahina, where his interpretation of Langi and Pulotu and Mama, academic, purely academic. I don't know where that came from. Then we have Futahelu, who was an academic, but then I found out later he went to college and he didn't get his degree. He got honorary degrees after
Yeah.
the fact, but he really didn't get his degrees. But he starts at university. I find that kind of ironic, and I'm not putting it down. I mean, good for him. I'm just saying you say they show him in his robe and in his everything, and I'm like, okay, time out. Yes, those are honorary, but let's be honest, it's not like he was David Burley who got his PhD, did decades of archaeological work. It's
He
not the
didn't
same.
know.
It's
He
not the
he
same.
didn't. I don't know if he lived to the time to see David Burley saying, "This is the oldest human settlement in all of Polynesia." Maybe it would have changed his tone. But
Yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of nuances he didn't pick up Futahelu. So regarding the languages, because yeah, he didn't
yeah,
get it. It's not just a Tonga thing, and even like what you're saying, it's such a because like I said, he's very influenced in the Western anyway. His school he created was called Athens after the
yeah,
Greek thing. So it's a Western thing, and he only knew what he knew in Tonga with a Western twist. That's pretty much what
yes.
it was.
No,
Yeah.
100%. And we're not trying to put him down. He
Yeah.
he inspired some people like Xiaoxi Ilayu, right?
Yeah.
Inspired
Yeah.
him to get he had a positive impact. But it's like, hey, that doesn't mean he's right about everything. It's like people in Hollywood. Just because you're good at acting and you acted to be a great you acted in a movie that was portraying um Winston Churchill, that doesn't mean you know how to govern a country. That
Yes.
doesn't mean you know how to make good politics. It just means you acted really good as that individual. Futahelu, I mean, he did some great things, contributed some great things, but just because he said something doesn't mean that that is accurate, especially when you look at the evidence and the oral history.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Aotearoa, one video. Wow.
We got a lot to say.
We had a
and
lot
and
to
our
say about
viewers
one video.
and our viewers were like interested too. A lot of questions, great questions. Appreciate it always from
Yeah.
the viewers, man.
So what we're gonna do, probably, Mr. Aotearoa, will probably, because there's so many of these videos, like I think there's like 10, 15 of them. Maybe
Dang.
we'll go through one of them. It's making the rounds in social media, and we've already addressed all these. This is what I think is hilarious. They like put this video out, and then they're like, "Well, take that, Polynesian ice," and I'm like, "Wait a minute, we've already talked about this. Like,
Uh,
we've already dismantled
was
this."
that a punch or a tap?
Yes, or was that a dessert? Because some
Dessert.
of these are like weak sauce. But anyways, my closing thoughts. Want to first off say thank you to all of our viewers. Appreciated every like, subscribe, share. Goes a really long way. We continue to expand our reach. Really appreciate all those who are, paying members of the podcast. Really appreciate everyone for your contribution, support, and even for those who go against us. We say thank you
Mm.
for all your comments, all your pushback, because at the end of the day, we want people to have more conversations. We want ideas to compete. And, the invitation still stands there. Anyone who wants to come and talk with us, even if you disagree with us, we will be respectful. Like our last guest, he had a concern that we would turn into a yelling match or whatever. I was like, no, it doesn't have to be. We can disagree in a very like civilized manner. Now, if you want to get into yelling matches, we won't shy away from a yelling match. We're just saying we will match the tone that you bring to the table. And that's my closing thoughts. Mr. Aotearoa, hand it over to you for your closing thoughts and close us out for this
No,
live digital kava session.
yeah, no, I appreciate everyone contributing and the the loyal supporters that follow us, see you all the time. It's amazing to see you guys have the ability just to kind of answer from some of the content that we've had from people who are just interested and or people like um I'm sure this person who did the video goes by multiple names and hashtags. Who knows? And that responds to all of our Facebook contact, especially. And you guys are well versed and just trying to understand our history and stuff. But I also want to touch on that Manu Mataongo tour because we know we do have our nephew. His name also he's older. You can say he's older, so he had the name first, Manu Mataongo, before the crown prince, and that that some of the definition I heard about that Manu Mataongo, it's such an old name that it's kind of like a representation of something mysterious that still that impacts you. Kind of like what you mentioned, like a face. It was something that mysteriously impacts you is from the definition I heard. And those are some of the right were you and like what you mentioned, we use manu as just like an animal, but there's so much other things that manu could have a reference back in the ancient days with some of these names that even us not 100% sure, and unless it's from certain families, know what it really means because they're very very old language, just sometimes even some of the english words that's used in certain scenarios that people don't really know what it means. So that's just kind of my thoughts there. I appreciate everybody and really enjoyed this digital live cover session tua malo, and the questions we always leave to our viewers and the fans all over the world, wherever you may be, is be bold, ask the hard question, and stay curious. Ofatu, till next time.
Peace.